Imagine yourself wrapped in a warm blanket of stars, gently drifting through time on a calm night. You are about to embark on a dreamy journey across our planet's incredible history, where animals stranger than any fairy tale once roamed, swam, and flew. This is not a tale of dragons or unicorns, but of real creatures that scientists have found in rocks, forests, oceans, and deserts, each one more amazing than the last. We will explore ancient seas filled with armor-plated fish, skies ruled by enormous birds, and forests where mammals carried tusks like sabers or looked like horses with trunks. We will dive deep below the ocean waves to visit glowing predators with needle teeth and transparent heads, and we will stroll through dry deserts to greet lizards that glide like paper airplanes. Along the way, you will learn how evolution works like a curious artist, trying out wild ideas to see which ones help life survive and thrive. Every creature in our story once struggled and adapted to a world very different from ours, leaving behind fossils and clues for scientists to uncover. Scientists call some of these creatures bizarre because their bodies seem strange or unexpected compared with animals today. But their strangeness tells us how diverse and creative life can be. Our tale will show you how animals develop long necks, giant claws, sails on their backs, or teeth like ribbons. And we will explain why those features were useful in their time. We will also meet living animals that still carry unusual designs, like birds with blue feet, mammals that lay eggs, or insects that drink tears from other animals. As you listen, picture these wonderful organisms in your mind, with soft colors and gentle movements, and let the facts lull you deeper into curiosity and wonder. Our journey will take us across more than 500 million years, beginning in the Cambrian period, when most major groups of animals first appeared in an explosion of shapes and forms. The Cambrian was a time when creatures like Opabenia had 5 eyes and a backward-facing mouth, and Anomalocaris, the earliest giant predator, swam using rippling flaps down its sides. Some Cambrian animals looked so alien that scientists joked about naming one Hallucinogenia, because its spines and legs seemed to be arranged upside down. Just last year, in 2025, researchers at the Grand Canyon discovered new soft-bodied fossils, including a priapulid worm with hundreds of branching teeth, which they named Crade Draco spectatus, after a dragon from Star Wars. These discoveries show that even today, we still learn new things about very old life, and that the natural world keeps surprising us. After exploring the Cambrian, we will swim into Devonian seas, where fish grew jaws and armor. And we will learn about Dunkleosteus, a fish with bony plates instead of teeth that could bite with a force stronger than a crocodile. We will examine Helicoprion, a shark-like creature with a spiral of teeth coiled like a saw, whose real purpose puzzled scientists for over 100 years. We will glide past giant sea reptiles like Mosasaurus, creatures so large that their fossils inspired sailors' tales of sea monsters. And we will visit Basilosaurus, an early whale with tiny hind legs that still hint at its land-dwelling ancestors. Moving to land, we will meet animals like Diplocaulus, an amphibian with a head shaped like a boomerang, which may have helped it steer in water or dig in mud. We will see Tanystropheus, a reptile with a neck 3 meters long, attached to a modest body,
and we will imagine how it might have fished by sweeping its long head through shallow lagoons. We will watch Charovictorix, a small gliding reptile that looked like a paper kite, with membranes stretched between its hind legs to help it parachute between trees. Later chapters will introduce dinosaurs that hardly resemble the ones in popular movies. There will be Therizinotosaurus, a feathered giant with meter-long claws, which scientists now think used its claws to pull down branches rather than fight. We will discover Spinosaurus, a crocodile-headed fish-eater with a sail on its back and a tail shaped like a paddle, perhaps living like a heron in the shallows. You will hear about Dinochoice, once known only from two giant arms with claws, until more fossils revealed a duck-billed humpbacked animal that waded through rivers like a giant goose. New research in 2024 unveiled Compsognathus chasei, a herbivorous dinosaur from the Isle of Wight nicknamed the Compton Thunderer, reminding us that new species continue to be named. Our wanderings will then bring us to mammals both extinct and alive that challenge our idea of what a mammal should look like. Macrocania, for example, stood like a camel with 3 toes and a short trunk, while Glyptodon looked like an armadillo the size of a car, with armor so thick it could survive attacks from saber-toothed cats. Ambulocetus, meaning walking whale, had 4 legs and webbed feet. It probably prowled rivers like a crocodile, bridging the gap between land-dwelling mammals and fully aquatic whales. Phylacosmilus was a marsupial predator with enormous saber teeth that grew out of its mouth and were supported by bony ridges from its lower jaw. In our chapters on birds, you will learn about Pelagornis, which had wings spanning 7 meters and a beak lined with tooth-like spikes, and about Hesperornis, a flightless swimming bird that hunted in Cretaceous seas like a penguin. We will meet terror birds that ran down prey in South America after the dinosaurs vanished, and we will admire modern oddities like the Hoatzin, a leafy-smelling bird whose chicks have claws on their wings to climb branches. The deep sea chapters will introduce you to anglerfish with glowing lemurs, giant isopods that look like armored pillbugs, and barreleye fish whose skulls are transparent, revealing green eyes that can rotate to look upward through their own heads. You will learn how gulper eels can swallow prey larger than themselves with expandable stomachs, how jellyfish like the lion's mane can grow tentacles longer than a blue whale, and how creatures like the vampire squid combine traits of squid and octopus to thrive in oxygen-poor water. We will not forget the small wonders. Insects and other arthropods will amaze you with their ancient giants like Meganeura, a dragonfly with a 70-centimeter wingspan that lived in high-oxygen carboniferous air, and Eurypterids, sea scorpions that grew to 2 meters long. We will learn about water bears or tardigrades, tiny animals that can dry out completely and survive in space, and about axolotls, salamanders that never grow up and keep their gills for life, allowing them to regenerate lost limbs. Finally, we will talk about unique ways animals reproduce and survive, such as male seahorses that carry babies in their bellies, frogs that swallow their own eggs to protect them, and insects that use love darts or traumatic insemination in complex mating rituals. This journey is meant to be both educational and soothing. Each chapter will unfold like a lullaby, with facts arranged like stars in a constellation, guiding you gently towards sleep while expanding your curiosity. If at any point you find your eyelids growing heavy, you can let go and drift, because the story will continue to paint pictures in your mind. No matter when you awaken, the creatures of Earth will still be there, waiting to be rediscovered.
Imagine opening a book that is over 500 million years old, and seeing pages filled with creatures unlike anything alive today. Chapter 1 takes us to the Cambrian period, a time when life exploded into a stunning array of forms in the world's shallow seas. The Cambrian lasted from about 541 to 590 million years ago, and it marks the first appearance of many animal groups in the fossil record. The ocean floors were covered with mats of bacteria and algae, and the water teemed with small animals that swam, crawled, or buried themselves in the soft mud. This was a time of experimentation, when bodies could be soft or armored, spiny or smooth, simple or complex. We begin with one of the simplest yet oddest creatures discovered from this era, Saccharithus. Fossils of Saccharithus were found in China and date back more than 500 million years. They are tiny, less than a millimeter long, and shaped like little wrinkled sacs with a single large opening that probably served as both mouth and, as scientists once thought, anus. Saccharithus belongs to a group called deuterostomes, which means they are related to animals like starfish and, ultimately, to us. In early studies, scientists thought this tiny creature had no separate exit for waste, so it simply expelled food particles back through its mouth. However, new analyses suggest that the dark pouches around its body might have functioned as gills or simple pores. Regardless of the exact details, Saccharithus reminds us that the earliest animals were simple and that evolution built complexity gradually. As the Cambrian seas continued to fill with life, the first animals with exoskeletons appeared. Among them were trilobites, which became some of the most successful creatures of the Paleozoic era. Trilobites had segmented bodies protected by a hard shell that was divided into 3 lobes from side to side, which is why they are called trilobites. These animals crawled along the seafloor, some burrowing and others swimming, and they had compound eyes made of calcite crystals that could detect light and movement. Trilobites molt their shells as they grow, leaving behind many fossils that allow scientists to study their development. Some trilobites had long spines for protection, while others had smooth bodies for burrowing. One species, Bohemian Halscara raptor, grew spines that were longer than its body, making it appear like a floating pine cone. Trilobites also developed a variety of feeding strategies, from filtering plankton to scavenging dead animals, showing early examples of ecological diversity. While trilobites were common, the Cambrian seas were also home to predators that look nothing like animals we know today. One of the largest and most fearsome was Anomalocaris, whose name means unlike other shrimp. Anomalocaris could grow up to 1 meter long, making it huge compared to most of its prey. It had large, compound eyes on stalks, giving it excellent vision to spot its meals. Its mouth was a circular, ringed structure lined with plates that moved like slices of an orange, allowing it to grasp and crush hard shells. On either side of its mouth, Anomalocaris had 2 flexible appendages with spines. These arms could bend and fold to bring prey to its mouth. Unlike many modern predators, it swam using a series of flaps along its body, undulating them like a wave to glide gracefully through the water. Scientists once debated whether Anomalocaris could bite hard shells, but fossil evidence of trilobites with repaired bite marks suggests that these big predators could indeed crack their prey's armor.
The presence of such hunters may have driven the evolution of stronger shells and defensive spines in other Cambrian animals. Another extraordinary Cambrian creature is Opabinia, discovered in the famous Burgess Shale of Canada. Opabinia's body was small and soft, but it had 5 eyes on stalks, arranged across its head like the lights of a strange vehicle. Below the eyes was a long, flexible proboscis, ending in a pincer, which the animal likely used to probe the mud for food and bring it to a mouth located on the underside of its head. With so many eyes, Opabinia could watch for prey and prey at the same time, and its proboscis might have helped it explore crevices in search of worms or soft creatures. Scientists have long debated how to classify Opabinia because it doesn't fit neatly into any modern group. Some think it was related to early arthropods, the group that includes insects and crustaceans, while others see it as part of a branch that went extinct. Either way, Opabinia shows that nature can combine eyes, limbs, and mouth parts in unique ways to solve problems. While Opabinia and Anomalocaris were predators, many Cambrian animals were small and spiny, covered in armor to protect themselves against hungry hunters. Among them were creatures like Microdictyon and Orthroxanklus, whose bodies were lined with hard plates that may have provided defense against hungry hunters.
Wiwaxia, for example, looked like a slug wearing a coat of scales and long spines. The scales were arranged in overlapping rows like roof tiles and protected the soft body underneath. The long spines stuck out from its back, deterring predators from attacking from above. Scientists are not sure how Wiwaxia roved. It may have used a muscular foot like a snail, or it may have wriggled like a worm. Another spiny creature, Diania, also known as the walking cactus, had a worm-like body with many long spiny legs. Diania's limbs were jointed and spiny, hinting at the origins of arthropod legs. Its spines likely served as protection and may have helped stabilize its slender body as it moved. The Cambrian explosion also produced tiny animals with shapes that are difficult to interpret, leaving scientists to puzzle over their purpose. Nectocaris, for example, has been described as an early cephalopod because it has fins, a squid-like body, and a flexible siphon used for jet propulsion. Some researchers think Nectocaris might represent a stage before the evolution of hard shells in the ancestors of squid and octopuses. Others think it could be a separate branch of soft-bodied swimmers that went extinct. These uncertainties remind us that fossils are snapshots, and sometimes pieces of the picture are still missing. One of the most recent surprises comes from the discovery of a new preapulid worm in the Grand Canyon, reported in 2025. Preapulids are often called cactus worms because of their cylindrical shape and ringed bodies. The new species, named Crate dracospectatus, had hundreds of branching teeth around its mouth that acted like combs, sweeping food particles into its flexible throat. It lived in a warm, nutrient-rich part of the Cambrian Ocean, where food was abundant and animals could evolve complex feeding structures. By studying fossils like Crate dracospectatus, scientists learn how early worms captured food and how their feeding methods may have influenced the evolution of later animals. Together, these creatures paint a picture of a world full of innovation.
The Cambrian seas were not peaceful gardens, but dynamic ecosystems with predators and prey, experiments in armor and speed, and the first appearances of features like eyes, jointed legs, and gills. They remind us that the foundation of modern biodiversity was laid long before dinosaurs walked the earth.
Our exploration of the Cambrian continues with creatures so strange that their fossil reconstructions once looked like abstract sculptures. Hallucigenia, for instance, was discovered in the Burgess Shale and later in China, and its name hints at how peculiar it seemed when first described. The animal was only a few centimeters long and had a soft, slender body with rows of spines along its back and paired tentacle-like limbs along its sides. At first, scientists could not decide which way up Hallucigenia should be drawn. Early reconstructions placed its spines on the ground and its tentacles in the air, making it appear like a creature walking on stilts. Later discoveries showed that the spines were likely on its back to protect it, while the tentacle-like appendages served as legs, with claws at the tips to grip the seabed. Each leg had a small hooked claw, suggesting that Hallucigenia could climb over sponges and other structures to find food. The head of Hallucigenia was tiny and simple, with a mouth at one end and a gut running the length of its body. Hallucigenia is related to modern velvet worms, small animals that live in tropical forests and catch prey with sticky slime. This connection shows that even the most bizarre Cambrian creatures can have living relatives today. Another unusual animal from the Cambrian is Herdia, a close relative of Anomalocaris. Herdia had a large head shield shaped like a box, with flaps that might have helped direct water into its mouth as it swam. Its body ended in a tail fan, and like Anomalocaris, it had large eyes and grasping appendages. Unlike its famous cousin, Herdia's frontal appendages were shorter and may have been used to sift sediment rather than catch large prey. Yet another strange creature, Odontogryphus, meaning toothed riddle, looked like a flattened slug with a row of teeth inside its mouth. These teeth were arranged in two belts that moved in opposite directions to shred food, a primitive version of the radula found in modern mollusks. This suggests that some Cambrian animals were early relatives of snails and clams. Among the earliest chordates, animals with a simple backbone, we find Picaia and Hycaichthes. Picaia was a small eel-like creature that swam by bending its body side to side. Its notochord, a flexible rod running along its back, is similar to the structure that would later become vertebrae in fish and humans. It also had myomeres, blocks of muscle arranged in chevrons, which are characteristic of many chordates. Hycaichthes was slightly more advanced, with the beginnings of a skull and eyes, and gills supported by cartilage. These tiny animals represent some of the earliest members of our own family tree, reminding us that even we have roots in the Cambrian seas. Alongside them were creatures called condodonts, jawless fish-like animals known mostly from their tooth-like elements. These elements are tiny and abundant in the fossil record, and their varying shapes have been used to identify layers of rock for decades. Recent finds of whole condodont animals show they had large eyes and eel-like bodies, and they may have been active predators or scavengers. The evolution of exoskeletons also fostered the Cambrian explosion, which allowed animals to grow larger and move with more strength. The group of animals known as arthropods today
include insects, spiders, and crustaceans, come first in the Cambrian. These early arthropods had segmented bodies and jointed legs, giving them flexibility and protection. One such creature, Fuxian huia, had a broad head shield and a body that ended in a fantail. It possessed a simple brain with 3 sections, similar to that of modern insects, showing that complex brains evolved early. Another early arthropod, Marella, had elegant curved spines on its head and a series of legs under its body. Scientists think it was a swimmer that also used its legs to scrape food from the seafloor. We must not forget the sponges and other soft-bodied animals that created habitats for these weird creatures. Large sponges anchored themselves to the seafloor, filtering water and providing shelter for smaller animals. Primitive jellyfish and cone jellies drifted in the currents, flashing faint lights or trailing delicate tentacles. Several Cambrian fossils show evidence of symbiotic relationships, where small worms lived inside sponges or crustaceans cleaned algae from the shells of larger animals. These interactions underscore that the Cambrian was a complex ecological web, not just a collection of odd shapes. As we observe these creatures, it is helpful to picture the environment they lived in. The world's continents were arranged differently in the Cambrian, and most life existed in the oceans. There were no trees or flowers on land, just barren rock and small microbial mats. The oxygen level in the oceans was lower than today, and temperatures could vary widely. These conditions meant that animals had to adapt quickly to survive, leading to rapid diversification. This is why the Cambrian explosion is often described as evolution's laboratory, where early animals tried many experiments in body design. Some of these experiments succeeded and left descendants that flourish today, while others ended without a trace beyond their fossils. When we imagine hallucigenia crawling or Anomalocaris gliding through the water, we see the early steps of life, exploring what is possible. These creatures may appear alien to us, but they are part of our shared history, and their fossils provide clues about how our own bodies evolved. For example, the segmented muscles of Picaia show how early chordates developed the ability to swim efficiently, a trait that would later allow fish to dominate the seas. The delicate gills of Hychaichthes illustrate how respiration moved from skin diffusion to specialized organs, enabling more active lifestyles. The complex eyes of Anomalocaris demonstrate that vision evolved very early, giving predators an advantage and prey animals to develop armor and camouflage. The spines and scales of Wiwaxia and Hallucigenia illustrate early defensive strategies that would influence the evolution of armor in later animals. Finally, the discovery of Crate Dracospectatus in the Grand Canyon highlights that our understanding of the Cambrian continues to grow. The fact that this new species was found in 2025 shows that new fossils can still emerge from well-studied regions. It encourages future scientists, perhaps including you, to explore and discover. As we end this chapter, let's take a moment to appreciate how far life has come since the Cambrian seas. The simple sacs and spiny worms of 500 million years ago laid the foundation for the complex ecosystems and animals we know today. Their stories are our stories, told in ancient mud and stone, whispering across deep time. With these images in your mind, we will gently transition to Chapter 2, where we will leave the Cambrian and enter the Devonian and later oceans, meeting monsters of ancient seas with jaws of bone and bodies built for power. Close your eyes and imagine the sea growing deeper, the fish becoming larger, and the arms of evolution reaching into new forms.
The curtain rises on Chapter 2, and we find ourselves drifting through oceans rich with life, far from the Cambrian's shallow lagoons. We have entered the Devonian period, often called the Age of Fishes, which lasted from about 419 to 359 million years ago. During this time, fish diversified into an astonishing array of forms, from jawless lampreys to jawed predators armored like tanks. The seas were warmer, coral reefs flourished, and plants had begun to colonize land, although vertebrates still dominated underwater. At the top of the Devonian food chain was a creature known as Dunklosteus, an immense predator that could grow up to 10 meters long. Dunklosteus belonged to a group called placoderms, which means plate-skinned, because their heads and thoraxes were covered with bony plates that interlocked like a suit of armor. Instead of teeth, Dunklosteus had sharpened bony plates in its jaw that acted like self-sharpening shears, growing as it aged and keeping a razor edge. Scientists have estimated that Dunklosteus could bite with a force of over 6,000 newtons, powerful enough to slice through the shells of other armored fish with ease. Its jaw could open in about 1/20th of a second, creating a suction that helped pull prey into its mouth. Because Dunklosteus grew so large, it likely had few predators, and its fossils have been found with bite marks that may indicate cannibalism or battles with other placoderms. Across the oceans, other placoderms adapted to different niches. Some grazed on plants, others filtered plankton, and still others evolved long snouts to probe crevices. As placoderms ruled the seas, the first true sharks were also evolving. Some of these sharks looked familiar, while others were fantastically strange. Helicoprion is one of the strangest. It swam the oceans around 290 million years ago during the late Paleozoic and is known for its mysterious spiral of teeth. For many years, scientists argued about where the spiral, called a tooth whorl, was located on the animal's body. Early reconstructions placed it on the snout or dorsal fin, but modern scans revealed that the spiral sat in the lower jaw. As Helicoprion closed its mouth, the spiral rolled backward, slicing through soft prey like squid. When the jaw opened, the teeth rolled forward again, ready for the next bite, much like a circular saw blade. Helicoprion did not have other teeth in its upper jaw. Instead, the upper jaw acted like a cutting board, and the lower tooth whorl did the cutting. This mechanism allowed the shark to replace worn teeth continuously, with new teeth forming in the spiral as old teeth rotated outward. Another ancient shark, Stethacanthes, was much smaller, about 2 to 3 meters long, but its shape was even more unusual. Stethacanthes had a flattened, anvil-shaped dorsal fin, covered in tiny tooth-like structures called denticles. The fin looked like a small ironing board on the shark's back, and the denticles gave it a rough surface. Scientists are not sure what the fin was used for. It might have been a display structure to attract mates or intimidate rivals, similar to a peacock's tail. Another idea is that it could have acted like a suction cup, allowing the shark to attach itself to larger animals or objects. Stethacanthes also had a patch of denticles on its head that matched the texture of the fin, suggesting that the shark could press its head against its dorsal fin to create suction. The exact purpose remains a mystery, adding to its charm. While sharks experimented with tooth spirals and odd fins, bony fish were also growing to enormous sizes.
Leadsictus is the largest bony fish known from the fossil record, reaching lengths of up to 16 meters or more. Its fossils have been found in Jurassic rocks from around 165 million years ago. Leadsictus was a filter feeder, similar to modern whale sharks and basking sharks. It swam with its huge mouth open, trapping tiny plankton in long gill rakers and expelling water through its gills. Because its skeleton was made of lightweight bone and cartilage, much of it has not fossilized, making it difficult to determine its exact size. Still, enough pieces remain to show that Leadsictus dwarfed most other fish, making it an impressive presence in Jurassic seas. Another giant of the ancient oceans was the orthocone cephalopod called Cambrian. These early relatives of squid and octopuses lived in the Ordovician period and had long, straight shells that could exceed 9 meters in length. Inside the shell was a siphuncle, a tube that allowed the animal to regulate buoyancy by adding or removing gas from the shell chambers. Cambrian used its many tentacles to grasp prey, and its beak could crush hard shells. Imagine a giant cone shaped like a rocket moving through the water, its tentacles reaching out like a living net. Such creatures dominated the oceans long before marine reptiles or whales evolved. The Paleozoic also hosted Eurypterids, sometimes called sea scorpions. These arthropods had elongated bodies, paddle-like tails, and large pincers. Some species grew to over 2 meters long and were fierce predators in shallow seas and lagoons. Eurypterids used their paddles to swim and may have come onto land to mate, leaving trackways preserved in rocks. Their fossils inspired legends of water monsters in regions where they were found. As the Devonian ended, a series of extinctions reshaped marine ecosystems. Placoderms disappeared, making room for sharks and bony fish to diversify even further in the Carboniferous and Permian periods. In the Triassic, after another mass extinction, reptiles moved into the seas and began to evolve into spectacular marine creatures.
When the dinosaurs evolved on land during the Mesozoic era, the oceans were already home to marine reptiles that were equally impressive. Among them were ichthyosaurs, reptiles that resembled dolphins with elongated snouts and large eyes. Ichthyosaurs, like Ophthalmosaurus, had eyes as big as dinner plates, equipped with bony rings that supported the eye and allowed them to see in deep water. These eyes suggest that ichthyosaurs hunted in low-light conditions, diving to great depths to catch squid and fish. Many ichthyosaurs gave birth to live young rather than laying eggs, and fossils show babies inside mothers, positioned head first as they would be born. In the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods, another group of marine reptiles called plesiosaurs developed long necks and small heads. The most famous is Elasmosaurus, whose neck could have more than 70 vertebrae, making it over 6 meters long. Elasmosaurus likely used its neck to swing its head through schools of fish or to reach into crevices while its body stayed still. Paleontologists once thought plesiosaurs carried their necks like swans, but recent studies suggest their necks were held mostly underwater to reduce drag. Pliosaurs, close relatives of plesiosaurs, took the opposite approach. They had short necks and massive heads, with jaws packed with conical teeth. Leopleurodon, one of the largest pliosaurs, may have grown up to 7 meters long and had jaws capable of delivering powerful bites. Some estimates based on fragmentary fossils once suggested lengths of 20 meters, but more recent measurements support a more moderate size.
Pliosaurs used their large flippers to accelerate rapidly, ambushing prey much like modern killer whales. Another group of marine reptiles that emerged in the Cretaceous period were the mosasaurs. Mosasaur and its kin were relatives of monitor lizards and snakes and adapted to life at sea. They had long, muscular bodies, flippers instead of legs, and powerful tails that moved side to side. Unlike plesiosaurs and ichthyosaurs, mosasaurs had jaws that could unhinge, similar to modern snakes, allowing them to swallow large prey whole. Some mosasaurs grew longer than 15 meters and were apex predators in their ecosystems. Fossils show mosasaurs with stomach contents containing fish, birds, and smaller marine reptiles. In 2015, researchers found evidence that mosasaurs gave birth to live young, with fossils of baby mosasaurs in deep water, suggesting they lived their entire lives at sea.
The ocean also hosted giant predatory fish like Xiphactinus during the late Cretaceous. Xiphactinus grew up to 6 meters long and looked like a larger, more fearsome tarpon with long, sharp teeth. One famous fossil of Xiphactinus contains a nearly complete smaller fish inside its stomach, which it appears to have swallowed whole shortly before dying. This fossil illustrates how these fish could gulp down large prey, sometimes at their own peril. Transitioning into the Cenozoic era, after the extinction of the non-avian dinosaurs, another group of vertebrates conquered the oceans: mammals. Early whales evolved from hoofed land animals that gradually returned to the sea. One of the earliest was Ambulocetus, which we mentioned in the introduction. Ambulocetus, meaning walking whale, looked like a crocodile with a long snout, strong legs, and a powerful tail. Its ears were adapted for underwater hearing, and it likely ambushed prey at the edges of rivers or shallow seas. By around 40 million years ago, whales like Basilosaurus were fully aquatic. Basilosaurus could reach up to 18 meters in length and had a long serpentine body. It retained tiny hind limbs with toes, remnants of its ancestors' legs, which protruded from its body but were too small to support weight. Scientists believe these limbs may have been used during mating. Basilosaurus had conical teeth at the front of its jaws for grabbing prey and serrated teeth at the back for slicing. Its vertebrae were elongated, giving its body a snake-like appearance, and it swam with undulating movements. The name Basilosaurus means king lizard because early paleontologists mistook its fossils for those of a giant marine reptile. Another fascinating marine mammal, although much later and now extinct, was Steller's sea cow. Discovered in the 18th century in the Bering Sea, this gentle giant could grow up to 9 meters long. It fed on kelp and had thick, bark-like skin and no teeth, using its lips to tear seaweed. Unfortunately, it was hunted to extinction within 30 years of its discovery. In the Miocene epoch, roughly 23 to 5 million years ago, a massive shark known as Oddities megalodon dominated the seas. Megalodon could reach lengths of up to 18 meters or more, and its teeth were the size of a human hand. It preyed on whales and large fish, using its enormous jaws to bite chunks out of them. Some modern sharks, like the great white, are distant relatives of Megalodon, but no shark today matches its size. The extinction of Megalodon may have been due to changes in climate, competition with smaller, more agile predators, or the disappearance of its preferred prey. All of these ancient sea monsters demonstrate how life in the ocean evolved into a variety of forms, adapted to different roles. Some grew armor to protect themselves, others developed specialized teeth to slice or filter feed, and still others evolved long necks or flexible jaws to reach elusive prey. The oceans provided abundant space for giants, and these giants left fossils that continue to inspire awe and curiosity. As we drift towards the shore of this chapter, think about how the animals of ancient seas laid the groundwork for modern marine life. Sharks still patrol our oceans, whales still sing, and fish still swim in schools, carrying forward designs that evolved millions of years ago. The next chapter will take us onto land and into the skies with reptiles that defy imagination, creatures with sails, horns, and wings that stretched like canvas. Allow the gentle sway of the sea to fade as we prepare to step onto beaches where reptiles take their first breaths of air and into forests where some will learn to fly. In Chapter 3, we leave the oceans and step onto land, where reptiles and their relatives tried out a medley of body plans and lifestyles. On dry ground, gravity and air currents offered new opportunities and challenges, inspiring creatures to evolve sails, horns, and even wings. Our story begins with an amphibian from the late Carboniferous and early Permian periods, Diplocalus. Diplocalus was not a reptile, but a close relative, and it lived about 300 million years ago in swamps and rivers. Its most striking feature was a skull shaped like a boomerang, with two long horn-like projections extending sideways. Scientists think these horns may have helped Diplocalus glide through water by acting like hydrofoils, or they may have deterred predators by making its head difficult to swallow. The horns could also have housed muscles for strong jaw movements, or supported sensory organs sensitive to pressure changes. Diplocalus had a long body and a paddle-like tail, suggesting it was a good swimmer, but it likely ventured onto land at times to bask or move between ponds. Fossils show that this animal persisted for millions of years, indicating that its unusual head shape was a successful adaptation. Moving forward in time, we encounter Dimetrodon, often mistaken for a dinosaur, but actually a synapsid, part of the lineage that eventually led to mammals. Dimetrodon lived in the Permian period around 290 million years ago and is famous for the tall sail on its back. The sail was formed by elongated spines extending from its vertebrae and connected by skin, creating a large surface area. Scientists debate the sail's purpose. It may have helped regulate body temperature by absorbing sunlight or releasing heat, or it may have been used for display to attract mates or intimidate rivals. Dimetrodon had a large skull with sharp teeth, including incisors that could puncture and canines that could rip, making it a formidable predator. Its legs sprawled to the side rather than underneath, giving it a gait similar to modern lizards, and its tail was long and muscular. This combination of features made Dimetrodon both powerful and agile in its environment. Another remarkable reptile from the Triassic period is Tanystropheus, which had one of the longest necks relative to body size of any animal. Tanystropheus's neck contained at least 13 extremely elongated vertebrae and stretched over 3 meters long, while its body was much shorter. The neck was stiff and could not bend much, so Tanystropheus likely used it to reach into water from the shore or to sweep through schools of fish. Some fossils show fish bones in its stomach, supporting the idea that it fed along coastlines and shallow lagoons. Its limbs were weak, and it may have spent much of its time in water, using its tail to propel itself.
The sheer length of its neck made it vulnerable to predators, but it also allowed Tonostropheus to exploit food sources that others could not reach. Reptiles in the Triassic also experimented with gliding. Charovipteryx, found in what is now Kazakhstan, was a small reptile with a membrane stretched between its elongated hind legs, forming a delta or triangular shape. Charovipteryx's front legs were tiny, and its long tail may have helped steer. When it launched from trees or cliffs, the membrane likely acted like a parachute, slowing its descent and allowing it to glide. This method of flight is different from that of modern flying squirrels, which use membranes between their front and hind limbs. Another gliding reptile from the Triassic was Coeluroceravus. Coeluroceravus had long ribs that extended from its body, covered by skin, forming wings that allowed it to glide between trees. This animal lived in ancient forests and may have fed on insects or small animals. Similarly, Kuehnosaurus from the late Triassic of England developed elongated ribs supporting skin membranes for gliding. These reptiles demonstrate that gliding evolved independently several times, as animals explored how to use the air to travel and escape predators. In forests today, a modern lizard known as Draco, or the flying dragon, uses a similar strategy. Draco has ribs that can extend outward, spreading flaps of skin to create wings. It leaps from tree trunks and glides through the air, steering with its tail and using its dewlap, a brightly colored throat fan, to communicate with others. This living example helps scientists infer how ancient gliders like Charovipteryx might have moved. Not all reptiles glided. Some developed horns and crests for defense or communication. Protoceratops, a small herbivorous dinosaur from the late Cretaceous, had a bony neck frill and a parrot-like beak that allowed it to clip vegetation. Its frill may have protected its neck muscles from predators or served as a display to attract mates. Chameleons, which are lizards that exist today, evolved unique traits such as independently moving eyes and extendable tongues. By rotating each eye separately, chameleons can look in two directions at once, scanning for insects and predators. When they spot prey, they shoot their tongue out at high speed, sticking it to the insect with a sticky tip. Their feet have fused toes that act like tongs for gripping branches, and their tails coil around twigs for extra stability. Chameleons also change color by expanding and contracting cells called chromatophores. This helps them communicate, regulate temperature, and camouflage. These adaptations show that reptilian oddities are not limited to extinct animals. Some live in our world today.
As time moved forward, some reptiles took the boldest leap of all. They conquered the skies. The first vertebrates to truly fly were the pterosaurs, a group of reptiles that evolved in the late Triassic and dominated the skies for over 160 million years. Pterosaurs are not dinosaurs, although they are close relatives. They belong to a different branch of the reptile family tree. Their wings were formed by a membrane of skin and muscle stretched from an elongated fourth finger to their bodies, sometimes also connecting to their hind limbs. This wing design differs from that of birds, which use feathers on their arms, and from bats, which spread their wing membrane across all their fingers. Pterosaur bones were thin and hollow, reinforced by a network of internal struts that made them strong yet light. They possessed large brains with well-developed regions for balance and vision, indicating that they were agile flyers. Among the earliest known pterosaurs was Eudimorphodon, which had sharp teeth adapted for catching fish. As pterosaurs diversified, they developed a range of shapes and sizes. Heterodostro, for example, had hundreds of stiff, bristle-like teeth forming a sieve in its lower jaw,
allowing it to filter small crustaceans from water, much like a modern flamingo. Nyctorosaurus had a spectacular elongated crest extending far above its head, possibly used for display or as a rudder in flight. Some pterosaurs developed large head crests made of bone and keratin. Scientists think these could have been brightly colored and used to attract mates or signal species identity. One of the most impressive pterosaurs was Quetzalcoatlus, named after the feathered serpent god of the Aztecs. Quetzalcoatlus lived in North America during the late Cretaceous and had a wingspan that may have reached 10 to 11 meters, making it one of the largest flying animals ever. When it stood on all fours, it was as tall as a giraffe. Quetzalcoatlus had a long neck and a sharp beak, and it might have hunted like a modern stork, stalking small animals on land and picking them up with quick jabs. Scientists debate how these giants took off. Some think they used their powerful leg and wing muscles to vault into the air, while others propose they launched from cliffs or high ground. Once airborne, their long wings would have allowed them to soar effortlessly for long distances. Not all pterosaurs were giants. Many were sparrow-sized, navigating dense forests and coastal cliffs. They likely nested in colonies and cared for their young, though direct evidence of pterosaur parenting remains rare. As pterosaurs flourished, some dinosaurs began to experiment with gliding and flight themselves. One example is Microraptor, a small dinosaur from the early Cretaceous with feathers on its arms, legs, and tail. These four wings allowed Microraptor to glide between trees, perhaps controlling its descent by changing the angle of its wings. Microraptor's teeth suggest it ate fish as well as small animals, indicating it could exploit different food sources. Another creature, Yi Qi from China, had a combination of feathers and a membranous wing supported by a slender bone extending from its wrist. This bat-like membrane may have allowed Yi Qi to glide or flap weakly, representing yet another experiment in the evolution of flight. These animals show that the boundary between gliding and powered flight was explored by multiple lineages, and that feathers originally evolved for insulation or display before being co-opted for flight. Reptiles on the ground also developed elaborate structures. Horned dinosaurs like Styracosus and Triceratops, though technically dinosaurs and part of our next chapter, had dramatic horns and frills that make them worth mentioning here. Styracosus had a single large horn on its nose and 6 long spikes on its frill, giving it the appearance of a living crown. These horns may have been used in contests with rivals or to ward off predators like the tyrannosaurs. In modern times, reptiles like the rhinoceros iguana have bony horns on their heads, and the frilled lizard of Australia has a large skin frill around its neck that it unfurls to scare predators. These living reptiles echo the ornate structures seen in their prehistoric kin. Another modern reptile, the tuatara of New Zealand, deserves mention for its uniqueness. The tuatara is the only surviving member of an ancient group of reptiles called sphenodontians. It looks like a lizard but has several distinct features, including a third eye on the top of its head. This eye, called the parietal eye, has a lens, retina, and nerve connections, but is covered by scales as the animal matures. Scientists believe it helps the tuatara regulate its day-night cycle and sense changes in light. The tuatara also has unique teeth fused to its jaw and can live for over 100 years, making it a living fossil. The reptilian oddities and aerial experiments we have explored in this chapter illustrate the inventiveness of evolution. Whether growing sails to regulate temperature, necks to reach distant prey, membranes to glide from tree to tree, or wings to soar over oceans, these animals adapted to their environments in remarkable ways. Each structure we have described served a purpose, whether for survival, communication, or attracting a mate. As you imagine Diplocaulis cutting through murky water with its boomerang head, or Quetzalcoatlus gliding above prehistoric plains, Remember that these creatures once lived and breathed on our planet. They show that life's creativity knows no bounds. In the next chapter, we will stay on land, but focus on the dinosaurs, whose diversity rivals that of any other group. We will meet feathered giants with claws like scythes, duck-billed giants that waded through rivers, and armored herbivores with tails like medieval weapons. For now, let the image of pterosaurs silhouetted against a sunset settle gently in your mind as you prepare to meet the dinosaurs beyond imagination.
Chapter 4 invites us into the world of dinosaurs, animals that have captured imaginations for generations. Yet the dinosaurs in our story are not just the familiar giants of movies. They include many strange and surprising forms that challenge what we think dinosaurs should look like. Dinosaurs lived during the Mesozoic era, from about 230 million to 66 million years ago, and they evolved into countless species adapted to every habitat on land. Among the most unusual are those with exaggerated claws, sails, crests, and humps. Let us begin with Therizinosaurus, whose name means scythe lizard. Therizinosaurus lived in the late Cretaceous in what is now Mongolia. It stood over 10 meters long and had long necks, potbellies, and small heads with beaks. Most extraordinary were its forelimbs, each bearing 3 claws that could reach up to 1 meter in length, longer than any other dinosaur's claws. For years, scientists assumed Therizinosaurus was a fierce predator, using its claws to catch and slash at prey. However, closer study of its teeth and jaw suggests it was a herbivore. The claws were likely used to pull down branches, dig for roots, or defend against predators. Fossils show that Therizinosaurus and its relatives were feathered, with long quills covering their arms and bodies. This combination of feathers, potbelly, and huge claws gives Therizinosaurus a gentle yet bizarre appearance, like a giant ground sloth dressed in plumage. Another unusual giant is Deinocheirus, whose name means terrible hand. For decades, Deinocheirus was known only from 2 massive arms and shoulder girdles discovered in Mongolia in the 1960s. The arms were over 2 meters long and had strong claws, suggesting a massive and powerful animal. In 2014, more complete fossils were found and revealed a surprising creature. Deinocheirus had a duck-billed snout, a long neck, a hump-like sail on its back formed by tall spinal processes, and broad, heavy hips. Its feet were splayed, like those of a goose, and its stomach contained fish bones and stones, indicating it waded in rivers, eating both plants and fish. This mix of features, duckbill, hump, and enormous arms, makes Deinocheirus one of the strangest dinosaurs known. We then meet Spinosaurus, a predator with a crocodile-like skull, conical teeth, and a tall sail on its back. Spinosaurus lived in North Africa during the mid-Cretaceous and is considered one of the largest carnivorous dinosaurs, possibly reaching lengths of 15 meters. Recent discoveries suggest that Spinosaurus was semi-aquatic, spending much of its time in water hunting fish. Its legs were shorter than those of other large theropods, and its tail was shaped like a paddle, with long spines supporting a web of skin. These adaptations would have made Spinosaurus an efficient swimmer, propelling itself through rivers and lagoons. The sail on its back might have been used for display, thermoregulation, or to help control its position in water. Spinosaurus's nostrils were positioned high on its snout, allowing it to breathe while its mouth was submerged.
These clues paint a picture of a dinosaur that hunted like a heron, stalking fish and snapping them up with its long jaws. Next, we travel to Portugal, where fossils of Miragaia, a stegosaur, were discovered. Stegosaurs are known for the plates and spikes along their backs and tails. Miragaia is special because it had an exceptionally long neck for a stegosaur, with 17 vertebrae, more than most sauropod dinosaurs. Its neck allowed it to reach high vegetation that other stegosaurs could not. Miragaia also had a tail tipped with spikes, called a thagomizer, used for defense. A recent study suggested that Miragaia might have swung its tail more for intimidation than for piercing, due to the flexibility of its vertebrae. This gentle giant thus combined the elegance of a giraffe-like neck with the threatening spikes of a stegosaur. Speaking of sails and crests, let's not forget Amargasaurus, a sauropod from South America. Amargasaurus had 2 rows of elongated spines running down its neck and back. These spines may have supported a skin sail or been covered in keratin to form a series of spikes. Scientists debate whether the spines formed a sail for display or helped deter predators. The arrangement is unlike any other dinosaur, making Amargasaurus a truly distinctive herbivore. We also see unique adaptations in ceratosaurs, like Ceratosaurus and Carnotaurus. Ceratosaurus lived in the late Jurassic and had a horn on its snout and bony ridges over its eyes. Its teeth were blade-like, and it may have been a swift hunter of small and medium-sized prey. Carnotaurus from the late Cretaceous of Argentina had 2 thick horns above its eyes, a deep skull, and extremely short forelimbs. Unlike Tyrannosaurus, which had small good functional arms, Carnotaurus's forearms were tiny and probably useless for grasping. Its horns could have been used for headbutting or display, and its long muscular legs suggest it was built for speed. The diversity in skull ornaments across carnivorous dinosaurs hints at complex social behaviors involving visual signals. Feathers also adorned many dinosaurs, even those that were not close relatives of birds. Anchiornis, for example, was a small theropod covered in downy feathers with black and white patterns and red on its head. Its feathers may have been used for insulation, display, and some limited gliding. Scientists can sometimes identify the colors of dinosaur feathers by examining microscopic structures called melanosomes, giving us an idea of how vibrant these animals may have looked. Another feathered curiosity is Yi Chi, which we mentioned earlier. Its wing membranes, supported by a rod-like bone, suggest that dinosaurs tried multiple solutions to flight. These experiments set the stage for the evolution of birds, which we will explore in Chapter 6.
Dinosaurs also evolved unusual headgear and behaviors that remain subjects of fascination and study. Pachycephalosaurus, like Pachycephalosaurus itself, had thick, dome-shaped skulls that could be over 25 centimeters thick. Some species had domes covered in bony knobs and spikes. Scientists once believed these dinosaurs used their domes to ram each other like bighorn sheep, but the structure of their neck vertebrae suggests that headbutting straight on might have been risky. Instead, they may have engaged in flank butting, using their domes to push and shove or to display dominance without causing serious injury. Another group, the hadrosaurs or duck-billed dinosaurs, sported hollow crests connected to their nasal passages. Parasaurolophus had a long, backward curving tube on its head that could reach almost 2 meters. When air passed through the crest, it likely produced low, resonant sounds similar to a trombone.
These calls could have been used to communicate over long distances, to attract mates, or to coordinate herd movements. Other hadrosaurs, like Lambeosaurus, had differently shaped crests, showing that the shape of the crest was an important signal in hadrosaur social life. Ankylosaurs, the armored dinosaurs, present another form of uniqueness. These squat herbivores were covered in bony plates embedded in their skin, and some species possessed tail clubs made of fused vertebrae and osteoderms. Ankylosaurus, the largest of them, could swing its tail club like a medieval mace, delivering blows strong enough to break the legs of predators. Its wide body and low posture made it difficult to flip over, and its armor likely discouraged attacks from even the fiercest carnivores. Ankylosaurus also had leaf-shaped teeth suitable for cropping vegetation and powerful tongues for pulling plants into their mouths. The diversity of dinosaur diets is reflected in their teeth and jaws. Some, like Oviraptor, had beaks and no teeth. Oviraptor was originally misnamed egg thief because its fossils were found near dinosaur eggs, but later studies showed that the eggs belonged to its own species, and the adults were probably protecting their nests. Oviraptor and its relatives had strong beaks for crushing nuts or shellfish and elaborate crests on their skulls. Mononychus, another small theropod, had tiny forelimbs with a single large claw. This unusual anatomy suggests Mononychus was a specialized insect eater, using its claw to dig into termite mounds or insect nests. Lemursaurus is yet another oddity. Juveniles had teeth, but adults became toothless and developed beaks, indicating a diet change as they matured. The constant discovery of new species continues to expand our understanding of dinosaur diversity. In 2024, the Natural History Museum announced the naming of Compsognathus chasei, a large herbivorous iguanodontian dinosaur from the Isle of Wight in England. Nicknamed the Compton Thunderer, this dinosaur adds to the list of European dinosaur discoveries and reminds us that new species are still being described. The fact that scientists named a new dinosaur in the 21st century shows how much there is yet to learn. Another recent discovery from 2024 involved fossil trackways found in South Korea. These tracks belong to a small theropod similar to Microraptor, and they show impressions of both feet and wingtips. The spacing of the footprints suggests that the dinosaur was running quickly while flapping its wings, possibly using them to gain speed or balance. This finding supports the idea that some dinosaurs used their wings not just for flight or gliding, but also to aid in running. It offers a glimpse into the evolutionary transition from running dinosaurs to flying birds. Meanwhile, a study modeling Tyrannosaurus rex populations suggested that the largest individuals of this species could have been 70% heavier than the biggest specimens discovered so far. These giant T-Rex may remain buried for millennia, waiting to be unearthed. The research reminds us that even famous dinosaurs like T-Rex may still hold surprises. Beyond their physical features, dinosaurs exhibited complex behaviors. Nesting sites show that some species built elaborate nests and laid eggs in circular patterns. Fossilized embryos reveal that dinosaur babies grew quickly, and some may have been able to leave the nest soon after hatching, while others depended on parental care. Cracks and bone beds suggest that some herbivores moved in herds, offering protection against predators. Social interactions likely included vocalizations, displays, and body language, similar to modern birds and reptiles. One discovery that captures the imagination is the fossil of a velociraptor locked in combat with a Protoceratopus. The velociraptor's sickle-shaped claw is embedded in the Protoceratopus's head, while the herbivore's jaws grip the predator's arm. This fossil, preserved by a sudden sandstorm, provides a snapshot of behavior frozen in time. Other fossils show dinosaur bones with healed injuries, indicating that these animals lived through and recovered from wounds. The world of dinosaurs was dynamic and complex, with species filling niches from apex predators to tiny insectivores. The unusual features we have discussed, long claws, sails, horns, domed skulls, tail clubs, and hollow crests, all evolved because they helped dinosaurs survive, reproduce, or communicate in their environments. As we conclude this chapter, imagine a landscape filled with diverse dinosaur shapes. Feathered giants pulling leaves from trees, armored herbivores grazing under their protection, and crested hadrosaurs trumpeting across the plains. These animals were not monsters, but successful organisms adapted to their worlds. Next, we will leave the age of dinosaurs and step into the age of mammals to meet ancient beasts with trunks, armor, and claws just as strange as those of the dinosaurs. Before you turn the page, let the calls of Parasaurolophus and the rustling of featherfaps mingle with the night breeze as you settle deeper into your sleepy journey.
Now, we enter Chapter 5, a land where fur, tusks, trunks, and claws tell stories of adaptation after the age of dinosaurs. The extinction of non-avian dinosaurs 66 million years ago opened ecological niches for mammals to diversify, giving rise to forms both majestic and bizarre. In the Paleocene and Eocene epochs, forests and plains were dotted with animals that seem half familiar, half alien. One of these was Macrauchenia, which lived in South America until about 10,000 years ago. Macrauchenia stood on long legs like a camel, with a long neck and 3 toes on each foot. Its skull had nostrils high on the forehead, suggesting it may have had a short proboscis or trunk, similar to a modern tapir. This trunk might have been used to grab leaves or sniff the air for predators. Macrauchenia's unusual combination of features baffled early researchers, but genetic studies of proteins suggest it was related to Perissodactyls, the group that includes horses and rhinos. Another South American oddity was Toxodon, a robust herbivore with a heavy body, short legs, and large incisors. Charles Darwin collected Toxodon fossils during his voyage on the HMS Beagle and wrote that it looked like a giant, unexpected mixture of a rhinoceros, a rodent, and a hippopotamus. Its teeth suggest it grazed on tough vegetation, and its body shape indicates it could run, but not very fast. The ancient forests of South America were also home to Glyptodon, a giant armadillo-like mammal about the size of a small car. Glyptodon's back was covered by a dome of fused bony plates called osteoderms, forming a shell that could weigh a ton. Its tail was encased in rings of bone, and some species had spiked tail clubs. Glyptodon fed on plants and was so well armored that it had little to fear from predators. However, its armor made it slow, and eventually humans hunted these animals, possibly using their shells for shelter. Still in South America, the giant ground sloth Megatherium roamed the Pleistocene plains. Megatherium could weigh as much as an elephant and stand 6 meters tall when rearing up on its hind legs. Its long claws, the size of scythes, were used to pull down branches and strip leaves.
Unlike modern sloths, which hang from trees, Megatherium moved slowly on the ground, turning its hind feet inward to avoid walking on its claws. Scientists believe Megatherium may have used its tail as a third leg to balance while feeding. Alongside Megatherium lived smaller but still unusual relatives like Mylodon and Nothrotheriops, which have been found with preserved fur and dung in caves, giving us direct insight into their diets. The Pleistocene also hosted predators with peculiar features. Smilodon, the saber-toothed cat, had elongated upper canines that could reach over 20 centimeters. These teeth were flattened like knives and serrated on the edges. Smilodon's jaws could open almost 120 degrees, allowing it to deliver deep bites to the throats of large prey, such as bison and young mammoths. Its robust forelimbs and muscular shoulders suggest it wrestled prey to the ground before biting. Another saber-toothed predator, Thylacosmilus, lived in South America and was not a placental mammal, but a marsupial. Thylacosmilus had saber teeth enclosed by bony flanges extending from its lower jaw, protecting the teeth when the mouth closed. This unique arrangement shows that different groups of mammals independently evolved saber-like teeth. Among herbivores, the giant rhino, Parasaurolotherium, sometimes called Indricotherium, deserves mention. Parasaurolotherium lived in the Oligocene, about 30 million years ago, and is considered the largest land mammal that ever lived. It stood up to 5 meters at the shoulder and could reach over 8 meters in length. Its skull was long, with a prehensile lip or short trunk for grabbing leaves from tall trees. Despite its size, Parasaurolotherium was lightly built and likely moved gracefully across ancient landscapes, feeding on a wide variety of vegetation. In North America and Eurasia during the Miocene lived a strange pig-like creature called Entelodon, sometimes nicknamed the hell pig. Entelodon had a massive head, long legs, and large jaw muscles. Its teeth indicate it was an omnivore, eating both plants and meat. Its skull had bony bumps similar to those seen in modern warthogs, which may have supported fleshy pads. Similarly formidable was Androsarchus, known from a single enormous skull found in Mongolia. Androsarchus's skull is over 80 centimeters long, with large teeth adapted for crushing. Some researchers think it was related to hippos and whales, while others link it to entelodons. With long legs and powerful jaws, Androsarchus was likely a top predator in its environment. In the Australian region, marsupials evolved their own giants. Diprotodon, the largest known marsupial, weighed about 2.5 tons and resembled an overgrown wombat. Its skull bore 2 large incisors, hence the name Diprotodon, meaning 2 forward teeth. Diprotodon roamed open woodlands and grasslands, browsing on shrubs and trees. Australia also hosted marsupial lions, such as Thylacoleo, which had bolt-cutter-like teeth for slicing meat. These predators had strong forelimbs and retractable claws, enabling them to climb trees and ambush prey. We must also mention the giant short-faced bear, Arctodus, which lived in North America during the Pleistocene. Standing over 3 meters tall on its hind legs, Arctodus had long limbs for running and may have been a swift hunter or scavenger. Its long snout and high shoulders gave it a somewhat hyena-like appearance. Fossils indicate it lived in open plains and had a varied diet. The Ice Age megafauna also included the woolly mammoth and mastodon, relatives of modern elephants. The woolly mammoth had long curved tusks and a thick fur coat adapted to cold climates. Mastodons had shorter, straighter tusks and different shaped teeth suited to browsing on leaves and twigs. Some mastodon species had a pair of tusks in the lower jaw as well. Another ancient proboscidean, Gomphotherium, had shovel-like lower tusks that may have been used to dig up aquatic plants or strip bark. These proboscideans show that trunks and tusks have evolved into many shapes to match different diets. Many of these large mammals disappeared at the end of the Pleistocene, possibly due to climate change and human hunting. By studying their fossils, we gain insight into how ecosystems functioned when giant mammals roamed the Earth.
While many prehistoric mammals astonish us with their size, living mammals offer their own peculiarities, proving that evolution's creativity did not end with the Ice Age. In Australia, the platypus and echidna are monotremes, mammals that lay eggs instead of giving birth to live young. The platypus has a duck-like bill, webbed feet, and a beaver-like tail. Its bill is covered with electroreceptors that can detect the tiny electrical fields generated by the muscles of underwater prey, allowing it to hunt with eyes closed. Male platypuses possess venomous spurs on their hind legs, making them one of the few venomous mammals. The echidna, or spiny anteater, is covered in sharp spines and uses its long tongue to scoop up ants and termites. Both the platypus and echidna incubate their eggs by curling around them, and their young lap milk that seeps from pores rather than from nipples. In the forests of Madagascar lives the aye-aye, a type of lemur with a bizarre appearance. The aye-aye has large, luminous eyes for night vision, giant ears for hearing insects inside wood, and a thin, elongated middle finger. It uses this finger like a probe to tap on tree bark, listening for hollow cavities where grubs hide. Then it gnaws a hole with its rodent-like teeth and inserts its finger to extract the grub. This unique feeding technique, known as percussive foraging, fills the ecological role of a woodpecker, an example of convergent evolution. In North America's wetlands, the star-nosed mole displays another extraordinary adaptation. On the tip of its snout are 22 pink, fleshy tentacles arranged like a star. Each tentacle contains thousands of touch receptors called Eimer's organs, making the star-nosed mole the fastest forager among mammals. It can identify and eat small prey in under 1/10 of a second. The star-nosed mole also swims well, using its sensitive nose to detect prey underwater by exhaling and re-inhaling air bubbles. In Africa and Asia, the pangolin is a mammal covered in keratin scales, resembling a walking pine cone. Pangolins feed on ants and termites using a long, sticky tongue that can be longer than their body. When threatened, they curl into a ball, their scales forming a nearly impenetrable armor. Unfortunately, pangolins are heavily trafficked for their scales and meat, making them one of the world's most endangered mammals. Another remarkable animal is the narwhal, a medium-sized whale known for the long, spiral tusk projecting from its head. The tusk is actually an elongated tooth that can grow up to 3 meters, spiraling counterclockwise from the left side of the upper jaw. Researchers believe the tusk is packed with nerve endings that allow narwhals to detect changes in water temperature and salinity. Narwhals may use their tusks to sense their environment or to establish dominance, gently rubbing tusks in social interactions. Farther north, the muskox endures Arctic winters with a coat of long, shaggy hair and an underlayer of fine, warm wool called kiviut. Muskoxen form protective circles around calves when threatened by wolves, presenting their sharp horns to attackers.
In the steppes of Central Asia, the saiga antelope attracts attention with its large bulbous nose. The saiga's nose, or proboscis, contains chambers lined with mucous membranes that filter dust during the dry summer and warm cold air in winter, helping the animal breathe in harsh conditions. Saiga antelope once ranged widely across Eurasia, but their populations have declined due to disease and hunting. In the forests of Central Africa lives the okapi, a relative of the giraffe with zebra-like stripes on its hindquarters. Okapi have long tongues capable of reaching their eyes and cleaning their ears. They are shy animals, so elusive that European scientists did not describe them until the early 20th century. Australia's koala, with its button nose and fuzzy ears, survives on a diet of eucalyptus leaves, which are toxic to most animals. Koalas have a specialized digestive system that detoxifies the leaves and a slow metabolism that allows them to spend up to 20 hours a day sleeping. The wombat, another Australian marsupial, is known for its tough rear end made of cartilage. When threatened, a wombat dives into its burrow, blocking the entrance with its rump to keep predators out. Wombats also produce cube-shaped droppings, which scientists believe prevent their feces from rolling away, helping them mark territory. The diversity of living mammals extends to the skies as well. Bats are the only mammals capable of powered flight. Their wings are modified hands with elongated fingers supporting a thin membrane. Bats use echolocation to navigate in darkness, emitting high-pitched calls and listening for echoes. Some bats, like the long-tongued bats of South America, have elongated snouts and tongues to feed on nectar. Others, like vampire bats, feed on blood by making small cuts in the skin of mammals and lapping the blood as it flows. Though their feeding habits might sound frightening, vampire bats have anticoagulant saliva that is being studied for medical applications in preventing blood clots. Recent discoveries show that the mammalian world continues to surprise us. In 2024, researchers identified Wibala's horseshoe bat in Kenya, a new species distinguished by its unique noseleaf shape and echolocation calls. Another new find, named Anguiculus DiCaprio after actor Leonardo DiCaprio for his environmental work, is a limbless, burrowing reptile related to caucalians, demonstrating that even amphibians can shock us with their form. Deep within South American caves, scientists discovered a blind fish that navigates using vibrations and water pressure, showcasing adaptations to complete darkness. These modern discoveries remind us that the catalog of Earth's animals is still incomplete. The peculiarities of mammals, both extinct and living, highlight evolution's ability to produce forms suited to every niche. Egg-laying mammals, marsupials with pouches, anteaters with armor, and whales with single tusks all reflect unique solutions to survival challenges. In the next chapter, we will take to the skies and water again, but not with reptiles or fish. We will explore birds, those feathered descendants of dinosaurs, and other avian curiosities, from giants that sailed on ocean winds to tiny hummingbirds that hover like dragonflies. For now, picture the platypus diving in a river, the pangolin curling in defense, and the eye tapping on a log under the night stars.
Feathers whisper through the air as Chapter 6 unfolds, bringing us to the avian realm, where dinosaurs gave rise to birds of wonder and whimsy. Our story begins with ancient birds that looked both familiar and strange, bridging the worlds of reptiles and modern birds. One of the earliest birds with a modern appearance was Ichthyornis, a seabird from the late Cretaceous. Ichthyornis resembled a gull with strong wings and powerful flight muscles, but it had a mouth full of sharp teeth. Its jaws closed on small fish, and its teeth likely gave it a firm grip. Fossils of its skull show that Ichthyornis had a beak at the tip of its snout, indicating that modern birds evolved beaks gradually, with teeth disappearing over time. Another contemporary of the dinosaurs was Hesperornis, a flightless aquatic bird that lived in shallow seas of North America during the late Cretaceous. Hesperornis had a long, streamlined body, powerful hind legs with lobed feet, and tiny wings. It swam by paddling with its legs and steered with its feet, much like a loon or grebe. Its teeth were set in grooves along its jaw, and it caught fish with swift lunges. Because it spent most of its life in water, Hesperornis's bones were dense and heavy, preventing it from floating too high. On land, Hesperornis likely moved awkwardly, but in water, it was a graceful hunter. As the Cretaceous ended, some bird lineages survived and diversified, while others vanished. The Paleogene period saw the rise of giant flightless birds that dominated terrestrial niches in the absence of large predators. In South America, the Forus ricasidae, also known as terror birds, grew up to 3 meters tall. These birds had large heads with hooked beaks and strong legs capable of running at high speed. Their wings were reduced, and they used their beaks to strike down prey. Titanus, one of the terror birds that migrated into North America, had thick, fused arm bones that may have helped stabilize its head during rapid strikes. Kalenkin, another giant terror bird, had a skull nearly 70 centimeters long, making it the largest known bird head. The terrifying appearance of these birds belie their role as top predators in their ecosystems. On the island of Madagascar lived the elephant birds, including Apiornis and Vorambe. These birds, which may have survived until 1,000 years ago, were among the largest birds that ever lived. They could weigh over 500 kilograms and stood 3 meters tall. Elephant birds were herbivores with thick legs and small wings, and they laid enormous eggs, some exceeding 30 centimeters in length. Each egg had a volume equivalent to about 150 chicken eggs. Humans likely hunted the birds and collected their eggs, contributing to their extinction. Across the ocean in New Zealand, a group of flightless birds called the moa evolved to fill a similar niche. Moa ranged in size from turkey-like species to giants over 3 meters tall. Like the elephant birds, moa were herbivores and laid large eggs. They had no wings at all, not even vestigial ones, suggesting they lost flight completely. The absence of mammalian predators on New Zealand's islands allowed these birds to grow large and flightless. The moa's only significant predator was the Haast's eagle, a marvel. Haast's eagle had a wingspan up to 3 meters and weighed up to 15 kilograms. It had powerful talons and could strike with great force, preying on young and adult moa. When humans arrived in New Zealand, they hunted the moa and modified habitats, leading to the extinction of both moa and Haast's eagle. Elsewhere in the Indian Ocean, the island of Mauritius was home to the dodo, a flightless bird related to pigeons. The dodo evolved in an environment without mammalian predators, growing plump and losing its ability to fly. It had a large beak and strong legs, and likely ate fruits and seeds. When sailors arrived in the 17th century, they brought pigs, rats, and monkeys that ate dodo eggs and hunted the adults. Within a century, the dodo was extinct, becoming a symbol of human-caused extinction.
Similarly, the great auk, a flightless seabird of the North Atlantic, was hunted for its feathers and meat until it vanished in the mid-19th century. These stories remind us of the fragility of island ecosystems and the impact of humans on large flightless birds. Not all unusual birds of the past were enormous. Palagornis, which lived from the Eocene to the Pliocene, was a seabird with a wingspan exceeding 6 meters, making it one of the largest flying birds ever. Its beak was lined with bony projections that resembled teeth, but were covered by keratin. These pseudo-teeth may have helped it catch slippery fish and squid. Palagornis's long wings allowed it to soar over oceans for days, riding on wind currents like modern albatrosses. Another remarkable ancient bird was Argentavis from South America. Argentavis had a wingspan of about 7 meters and weighed up to 70 kilograms. Its size made takeoff challenging. Scientists think it launched from elevated areas or took advantage of strong winds to become airborne. Argentavis likely fed on carrion and hunted small animals, similar to today's condors. These giant birds illustrate that the skies once held creatures whose size exceeds that of any bird alive today.
The tapestry of avian oddities continues with birds that still share our world. Some of them carry ancient traits, while others exhibit behaviors and appearances that seem almost fantastical. In the Amazon rainforest lives the hoatzin, also called the stink bird, because its leafy diet ferments in a specialized crop, giving off a distinctive smell. Hoatzin chicks have claws on their wings, which they use to climb branches before they are able to fly. When threatened, the chicks drop into water and swim back to safety. The adults have blue skin around their eyes, a spiky crest, and a distinctive cackling call, making them stand out among birds. In the swamps of Central Africa stands the shoebill, a tall bird with a bill shaped like a giant wooden shoe. The shoebill's bill is wide and strong, perfect for catching lungfish, snakes, and small crocodiles. It remains motionless for hours, waiting patiently for prey, then lunges with astonishing speed. Its large feet and long legs allow it to walk on floating vegetation. Another ground-dwelling bird with unique adaptations is the secretary bird of African savannas. The secretary bird has long, crane-like legs and hunts on foot, stomping snakes and rodents with powerful kicks. Its crest of feathers resembles old-fashioned quill pens tucked behind a clerk's ear, giving it its name. In New Zealand's forests lives the kakapo, the world's only flightless parrot. Kakapos are nocturnal and have soft, moss-green feathers that blend with their surroundings. They climb trees using their beaks and claws and glide down using their wings for balance. Kakapos are famous for their booming mating calls, which can be heard kilometers away. Sadly, they are critically endangered, with intensive conservation efforts underway to protect them from introduced predators. In Papua New Guinea and Australia, birds of paradise display extraordinary plumage and dances. Male superb lyrebirds mimic the calls of other birds, chainsaws, car alarms, and camera shutters to impress females. The male lyrebird's tail feathers form a lyre-like shape when fanned, and it dances in rhythm with its songs. Other birds of paradise have elaborate plumes and perform courtship displays, puffing out chest feathers, snapping their wings, or hanging upside down to attract attention. The richness of their behaviors underscores the role of sexual selection in shaping extreme traits. In the rainforests of Borneo and Sumatra lives the rhinoceros hornbill, which has a large casque on top of its beak.
Hornbills are known for their nesting habits. The female seals herself inside a tree cavity using mud and droppings, leaving only a narrow slit through which the male feeds her and their chicks until they are ready to emerge. Among nocturnal birds, the oilbird stands out as the only flying bird that uses echolocation like a bat. Oilbirds live in caves in South America and navigate in complete darkness by emitting rapid clicks and listening to the echoes. They feed on oily fruits and were once hunted for their fat, which could be rendered into oil. Nightjars and frogmouths, relatives of the oilbird, have wide mouths and cryptic plumage that camouflage them among leaves and branches. In the wetlands of Japan and China lives the crested ibis, whose white plumage and red face once made it a common sight. Now it is critically endangered, but recovering thanks to conservation. The kiwi of New Zealand is another night-loving bird with odd traits. Kiwis are the smallest ratites, the group that includes ostriches and emus. Yet they lay eggs that are among the largest relative to body size of any bird. A kiwi egg can weigh up to 20% of the female's weight. Kiwis have nostrils at the tip of their beak, and they use their excellent sense of smell to find worms and insects in the soil. They are monogamous and may pair for life. Back in Australia, the cassowary, a close relative of the emu, roams dense forests. Cassowaries have helmet-like casques on their heads, vibrant blue and red neck skin, and dagger-like claws on their inner toes. They are capable of powerful kicks and have been known to defend themselves vigorously. Their diet includes fallen fruit, and they play an important role in seed dispersal. Among seabirds, the albatross is famous for its ability to glide over the ocean for hours without flapping its wings. Albatrosses have wingspans that can exceed 3.5 meters, enabling them to harness wind currents and travel thousands of kilometers across open water. They spend most of their lives at sea, returning to land only to breed. They form long-term pair bonds and perform intricate dances when courting. Even common birds possess extraordinary features. The woodpecker's tongue wraps around its brain to cushion it while pecking, and it can peck up to 20 times per second without injury. The crossbill has crossed mandibles that help it pry open pine cones. The hummingbird can hover by flapping its wings in a figure-8 pattern, and its heart can beat over 1,000 times per minute. The flamingo filters algae and small crustaceans through comb-like structures in its beak, standing on one leg to conserve heat. Cuckoos lay their eggs in the nests of other birds, leaving the foster parents to raise their chicks, a strategy known as brood parasitism. Malleefowl bury their eggs in mounds of vegetation, and the rotting vegetation generates heat to incubate the eggs, and the male monitors the temperature by inserting his beak like a thermometer. The variety of behaviors and adaptations in birds today mirrors the diversity of their ancestors. From giant flightless hunters to tiny nectar sippers, birds have occupied niches across the globe, each evolving unique solutions to survive and reproduce. As we close this chapter, let your imagination follow a Hoatzin chick clambering up a branch, a shoebill waiting patiently in a marsh, and a lyrebird singing the songs of its forest. The next part of our journey will plunge us back into the oceans and explore the creatures that haunt the depths and shimmer in the lightless abyss. The deep sea is home to some of the weirdest animals alive today, and we will meet them soon.
Our voyage now dives into Chapter 7, descending beneath waves into realms of perpetual twilight and absolute darkness. The deep sea is Earth's largest habitat, covering more than half the planet and descending to depths greater than the height of any mountain. At pressures hundreds of times greater than the surface and with no sunlight, life here has evolved extraordinary adaptations. Near the surface, where some light still penetrates, we meet the anglerfish, famous for the glowing lure that dangles from its head. Female anglerfish carry a modified dorsal spine tipped with a bioluminescent bulb filled with bacteria that produce light. In the darkness, this light attracts curious prey, which the anglerfish snaps up with its enormous mouth and needle-sharp teeth. Some anglerfish species have males that are tiny compared to females. They attach themselves to the female's body, fusing their tissues and sharing her blood supply, becoming permanent mates. Deeper still swims the viperfish, with fangs so long that it cannot close its mouth fully. Its jaws are hinged, allowing the viperfish to swallow prey almost as large as itself. A series of light-producing organs, called photophores, run along its sides, flashing to lure prey or communicate with others. Another surreal fish is the barreleye, whose eyes are enclosed within a transparent, fluid-filled shield on its head. The eyes can rotate upwards to watch for the silhouettes of prey above, while still looking forward when capturing food. Because its skull is transparent, you can see the green barrel-shaped lenses move inside. Then there is the gulper eel, also called the pelican eel, which has a mouth so large it can swallow fish larger than itself. Its lower jaw is hinged and can unfold like a net, while its long whip-like tail ends in a bioluminescent bulb that may attract prey. After capturing a meal, the gulper eel's stomach expands to accommodate it, and it can go for long periods without eating again. Among the invertebrates, jellyfish mesmerize us with their beauty and strangeness. The lion's mane jellyfish is one of the largest, with tentacles that can extend over 30 meters, longer than a blue whale. Its tentacles are lined with stinging cells that paralyze small fish and plankton. Meanwhile, the deep-sea crown jellyfish, Atolla, flashes rings of light when attacked. This display may attract larger predators that will eat the attacker, allowing the jellyfish to escape. Some jellyfish, like Turritopsis dohrnii, can revert to an earlier life stage when injured, effectively making them biologically immortal. In the depths live cephalopods as well. The giant squid and colossal squid are among the largest invertebrates, reaching lengths of 13 meters or more. They have large eyes, up to 30 centimeters across, adapted to detect faint light and bioluminescence. The colossal squid has swiveling hooks on its tentacles, enabling it to latch on to prey. These squids inhabit deep, cold waters and are rarely seen alive. Most information about them comes from specimens washed ashore or caught by deep-sea fishing. Another cephalopod, the vampire squid, combines traits of squid and octopuses. It has a cloak-like webbing between its arms, red eyes, and spines inside the webbing. It does not suck blood. Its name comes from its dark color and cloak. Instead of ink, the vampire squid releases a cloud of glowing mucus filled with bioluminescent predators. The vampire squid's diet consists mainly of marine snow, the mix of detritus and tiny organisms that fall from above, highlighting how animals adapt to nutrient-poor environments. In the mud of the deep-sea floor, giant isopods crawl slowly like armored roly-polies. These crustaceans can grow up to 30 centimeters long and are related to pill bugs. They scavenge carcasses that sink from above, such as dead fish and whales, and can go months without food. When they find a meal, they gorge until almost unable to move. Another deep-sea scavenger is the hagfish. Hagfish have no jaws and feed by rasping meat off dead or dying animals with keratinous plates. They defend themselves by producing copious slime from glands along their bodies. When threatened, a hagfish releases slime that expands in water, clogging the gills or mouths of predators. Then the hagfish ties itself in a knot and pushes the knot along its body to scrape off the slime.
Deep-sea chimeras, also called ghost sharks, have elongated snouts covered in electroreceptors that detect weak electrical signals from prey. They have cartilaginous skeletons, like sharks, but are part of a separate lineage. Some species have venomous spines on their dorsal fins for defense. At the greatest depths, more than 8,000 meters below the surface, live snailfish with translucent bodies and soft bones. These fish have adaptations like flexible bones and a special gel inside their cells to withstand crushing pressure. In 2023, scientists filmed a snailfish at a depth of 8,336 meters, setting a record for the deepest fish ever seen. The species, a member of the genus Pseudoliparis, has not yet been formally named. This discovery shows that life can thrive even in extreme conditions we once thought uninhabitable.
Beyond the abyssal plains, the oceans host an array of strange creatures in shallower waters and along coasts. The mantis shrimp is a small crustacean with one of the fastest and most powerful punches in the animal kingdom. Two main types exist: smashers and spearers. Smashers have club-like appendages that they swing at speeds comparable to a bullet leaving a gun, generating shock waves that can break the shells of snails and crabs. Spearers have barbed limbs for impaling soft-bodied prey. Mantis shrimp also possess incredible vision. They have up to 16 types of color receptors compared to our 3, allowing them to see ultraviolet and polarized light. Giant clams and geoducks are bivalves that live buried in sand. The geoduck, found on the west coast of North America, can live more than 140 years and grows a siphon up to 1 meter long. It filters plankton from the water and rarely moves. The Japanese spider crab has the longest leg span of any arthropod, reaching 4 meters from claw to claw. Despite their intimidating appearance, these crabs are gentle scavengers. In shallow tropical seas glide the leafy sea dragon and the weedy sea dragon, relatives of seahorses. Their bodies are adorned with leaf-like appendages that provide camouflage among seaweed. Male sea dragons and seahorses carry the fertilized eggs on their bodies, with males of some species incubating the eggs in a pouch until they hatch. Among fish, the ocean sunfish, or mola mola, stands out for its round, flattened shape and giant size. Sunfish can weigh over a ton and feed on jellyfish and other soft-bodied animals. They bask on their sides near the surface, warming up after dives, and allowing seabirds to pick parasites from their skin. Another fish with a unique adaptation is the mud skipper, which can leave water and walk on land using its pectoral fins. Mud skippers breathe through their skin and the lining of their mouth and throat as long as they stay moist, and they defend territories on mudflats. Marine worms also display diverse forms. The bobbit worm is an ambush predator that hides in the sand with only its antennae exposed. When a fish brushes against its antennae, the worm shoots out, grabbing the prey with a set of strong jaws and dragging it underground. Tube worms around hydrothermal vents rely on symbiotic bacteria to convert hydrogen sulfide into organic compounds, a process known as chemosynthesis. These vents support entire communities independent of sunlight. In the Indian Ocean's hydrothermal vents resides the scaly foot snail, which armors itself with iron sulfide scales and a shell embedded with iron, making it the only animal known to incorporate iron into its skeleton.
Moving closer to shore, nudibranch or sea slugs dazzle with rainbow colors and extraordinary shapes. Some nudibranches incorporate stinging cells from the prey they eat into their own bodies for defense. Others contain symbiotic algae and derive energy from photosynthesis. Starfish, or sea stars, have the remarkable ability to regrow lost arms, and in some species, an entire new star can grow from a single arm. Sea cucumbers, despite their plain appearance, play an important role in recycling nutrients by digesting sand and organic matter. They can eject their internal organs to distract predators and later regenerate them. Comb jellies, or ctenophores, are fragile marine animals that move by beating rows of hair-like cilia that diffract light into shimmering rainbows. Unlike jellyfish, comb jellies do not sting. Instead, many have sticky cells to capture prey. Salps are gelatinous, barrel-shaped animals that pump water through their bodies to move and feed on plankton. They can form long chains that drift through the ocean, filtering enormous volumes of water and contributing to carbon transport to the deep sea. On coral reefs, parrotfish play a vital role in reef health by grazing on algae and dead coral, grinding it with strong beaks, and excreting it as fine sand. Parrotfish sleep in mucus cocoons they secrete to mask their scent from nocturnal predators. These examples illustrate the dazzling diversity of marine life from the surface to the deep. Many species remain undiscovered. Scientists estimate that a majority of deep-sea species are still unknown. Advances in submersible technology and remote cameras continue to reveal new animals and behaviors. For example, in 2024, researchers exploring the Clarion-Clipperton Zone in the Pacific discovered 2 new species of amphipods, Valetiata cinchlis and Valetiata tritarum, and a deep-sea squid with ribbon-like arms. Such discoveries remind us that the ocean still holds countless secrets. As we leave the deep sea for now, picture the glow of bioluminescent jellyfish pulsing like stars in a midnight sky, the silent glide of a giant manta ray, and the patient hover of an anglerfish with its lure. Our next chapter will shrink the scale and take us into the miniature world of insects, arthropods, and other small wonders, where bizarre forms are multiplied a millionfold. Let the steady rhythm of the waves and the gentle flicker of plankton guide you toward the next story.
Chapter 8 invites us to shrink down and explore a world where creatures are measured in centimeters or millimeters, but display epic diversity. Insects and other arthropods outnumber all other animals. For every person on Earth, there are billions of insects, each with adaptations that allow them to thrive in nearly every environment. Our journey begins in the Carboniferous period, about 300 million years ago, when giant insects filled the humid air. During this time, the atmosphere contained more oxygen than today, allowing arthropods to grow much larger because oxygen diffuses through their bodies rather than being pumped by lungs. Meganeura, a dragonfly-like insect, had wingspans up to 70 centimeters. Its wings were delicate membranes supported by networks of veins, and it likely hunted other insects, swooping through dense forests. Another Carboniferous giant was Arthropods, a millipede relative that could grow over 2 meters long. Its body consisted of numerous segments, each bearing a pair of legs, and it likely fed on decaying plant material. Because Arthropods had no obvious defensive structures,
Its size may have been its best protection against predators. Sea scorpions, or Eurypterids, also achieved impressive sizes in ancient seas. Jackalopeterus renanii, one of the largest, could reach over 2 meters in length. It had powerful claws and a long paddle-like tail for swimming. Eurypterids were fierce predators of fish and other arthropods. These giants vanished when oxygen levels fell and vertebrate predators grew more efficient. Closer to our time, giant terrestrial arthropods are rarer, but some still evoke wonder. The Japanese spider crab we mentioned has long legs, and the coconut crab, found on tropical islands, is the largest terrestrial arthropod today. Coconut crabs can weigh up to 4 kilograms and have claws strong enough to crack coconuts, their namesake food. They are relatives of hermit crabs, but abandon shells as adults, instead developing hardened exoskeletons. Another living fossil is the horseshoe crab, which has remained relatively unchanged for hundreds of millions of years. Horseshoe crabs have domed, helmet-like bodies, long tails called telsons, and 10 legs underneath. Despite their name, they are more closely related to spiders and scorpions than to crabs. Horseshoe crabs spawn in mass on beaches, laying eggs that provide food for migrating shorebirds. Their blue blood contains a compound called limulus amoebocyte lysate, which clots in the presence of bacterial toxins and is used to ensure medical equipment is sterile. This makes horseshoe crabs important to human health as well as to ecosystems. Spiders display a wide range of body forms and behaviors. Orb weaver spiders spin intricate webs using silk produced from glands called spinnerets. The spiny orb weaver has spikes on its abdomen, giving it a star-like appearance. The ogre-faced spider, also known as the net-casting spider, spins a small rectangular web and holds it between its legs. When an insect passes below, the spider stretches the web and drops it over the prey like a fisher casting a net. Jumping spiders have large forward-facing eyes that provide acute vision. Some species perform elaborate courtship dances, waving colored legs and vibrating their abdomens to attract mates. One of the most unusual spiders discovered in recent years is the pirate spider, which preys on other spiders. It sneaks onto the victim's web and plucks the threads to mimic trapped prey, luring the owner into a trap. In 2024, a new species, Aerolizza, was described from the island of St. Helena, highlighting how much remains to be discovered. Insects include some of the strangest life strategies. The stick insects, or phasmids, mimic twigs and leaves to avoid predators. Some species can grow over 50 centimeters long. When threatened, certain stick insects release a foul-smelling spray to deter attackers. Another master of disguise is the leaf insect, whose body is flattened and veined like a leaf, and which even sways like a leaf in the wind. Praying mantises are predators with elongated bodies and triangular heads. Their front legs are modified into raptorial limbs with spines for grasping prey. Males approach females cautiously, as females may cannibalize them during mating, though this behavior is less common in the wild than in captivity. Many mantis species display vivid colors and mimic flowers to ambush pollinating insects. Some, like the orchid mantis, blend into blossoms so convincingly that they attract pollinators directly to them. In the realm of beetles, rhinoceros beetles have horns larger than their bodies, used to flip rivals during fights over mates. Diving beetles have bubbles of air under their wings that act as scuba tanks, allowing them to stay underwater for long periods. Fireflies and glowworms produce light through bioluminescence, using a chemical reaction between luciferin and oxygen. The light is cold,
meaning it emits very little heat, and different species flash in patterns to attract mates of their own kind. Dragonflies are agile flyers with 2 pairs of wings that move independently. They catch prey mid-air with their legs and can change direction rapidly. Their aquatic larvae, called nymphs, have extendable jaws that shoot out to grasp prey. Another fascinating group is the otterfly order of insects called Strepsiptera. Strepsipteran females spend their lives inside the bodies of other insects, with only their head protruding to release pheromones and birth tiny larvae. Males are free-flying and have twisted hindwinds, hence the name. Such parasitic lifestyles show that insects can inhabit other organisms as their primary environment. The strength and versatility of insect exoskeletons, composed of chitin and proteins, allow for many shapes and sizes. This exoskeleton also restricts growth, leading insects to molt their shells multiple times through stages called instars. During metamorphosis, caterpillars dissolve much of their bodies inside a chrysalis and reorganize into butterflies, a process akin to rebirth. These transformations are among the most dramatic changes in the animal kingdom. Beyond ancient giants and masters of disguise, many small invertebrates exhibit behaviors and features so strange that they seem like science fiction. Tardigrades, or water bears, are microscopic animals found in mosses, soils, and aquatic environments. They have plump bodies with 8 stubby legs and claws, and they feed on plant cells or small invertebrates. Tardigrades are famous for their extreme resilience. When conditions become inhospitable, they enter a state called cryptobiosis, curling up into a dehydrated ball known as a ton. In this state, they can survive for years without water, withstand extreme temperatures, high radiation, and even the vacuum of space. When water returns, they rehydrate and continue life as if nothing happened. Rotifers, another group of microscopic animals, have wheel-like ciliated structures at their heads that spin to draw in food particles. Some rotifers are all female and reproduce by cloning themselves through parthenogenesis. In their resting eggs, rotifers can survive drying and freezing, contributing to their success. In the rainforests of Central and South America live velvet worms, soft-bodied relatives of arthropods that shoot sticky slime from glands on their heads to capture prey. Velvet worms walk with multiple stubby legs, and their bodies shimmer with iridescent colors. They are considered living fossils, with relatives dating back to the Cambrian period. Earthworms and other annelids may appear simple, but some marine polychaetes have iridescent bristles and jaws made of metal-like minerals. The deep-sea polychaete Eunice aphrodotus, also known as the bobbit worm, can grow several meters long and swiftly snatches prey with a lightning-fast lunge. Insects also engage in mind-bending interactions with fungi and parasites. Cordyceps fungi infect insects like ants and caterpillars, taking over their nervous system. The fungus compels the host to climb to a high point before killing it and growing a fruiting body from the corpse, releasing spores to infect more hosts. This gruesome life cycle inspired fictional stories about zombie apocalypses. Another parasite, the trematode flatworm Leucochloridium, infects snails. It invades the snail's eye stalks, causing them to pulsate with bright colors, making the snail resemble a caterpillar. This attracts birds, which eat the snail's eyes and continue the parasite's life cycle. Meanwhile, some mobs have evolved to drink tears. Hemiceratoides avimolestum, discovered in Madagascar, sneaks up on sleeping birds and inserts its long proboscis into the bird's eye to drink its tears.
The tear fluid provides the moth with proteins and salts. Other insects, such as butterflies, sip tears or sweat from reptiles and mammals for similar reasons. In the same study that described the tear-drinking moth, researchers also named a parasitic flatworm, Diplomenorchus fallax, and a clearwing moth, Carmenta brachyclados, found 7,000 kilometers from its native Guyana, fluttering in a Welsh living room. These discoveries show that even tiny creatures can travel far and adapt to unexpected environments. Ants demonstrate complex social structures and behaviors. Leafcutter ants cultivate fungus gardens by cutting leaves and feeding them to the fungi, which in turn provide food for the colony. Each ant has a specific role: workers, soldiers, and farmers. Some ants enslave other ant species, stealing their pupae and making them work for the colony. Army ants form living bridges and rafts with their own bodies to cross obstacles during foraging raids. Bees also exhibit remarkable behaviors. Honeybees communicate the location of flowers through the waggle dance, a figure-8 pattern that encodes direction and distance relative to the sun. Queen bumblebees hibernate alone during winter and found new colonies in spring, rearing the first workers by themselves. Termites, although sometimes seen as pests, are master architects. They build mounds with complex ventilation systems that regulate temperature and humidity. Some termites cultivate fungus for food, similar to leafcutter ants. Spiders, like the social Anolosimus, form communal webs housing hundreds of individuals that cooperate to capture large prey. Among the most painful of insect stings is that of the bullet ant, named because its sting feels like being shot. Bullet ants use their sting to protect their nests, and the Satere-Mawe people of Brazil use bullet ants in initiation rituals, weaving them into gloves that young men wear to test their courage. Another insect with a formidable sting is the tarantula hawk wasp, which hunts tarantulas to feed its larvae. Despite their scary looks, these wasps sip nectar as adults and are important pollinators. Moths and butterflies exhibit stunning patterns and mimicry. The owl butterfly has large eye spots on its wings that resemble the eyes of a predator, deterring birds. The atlas moth has wings shaped like snake heads at the tips to startle would-be attackers. Caterpillars may mimic snakes or bird droppings to avoid detection. The diversity of forms and behaviors among insects and other small creatures is staggering and continues to expand as scientists discover new species every year. In 2024, researchers named Mylopus sauron, a vegetarian piranha with orange fins and a black stripe reminiscent of the Eye of Sauron from The Lord of the Rings. Another new discovery was the parasitic Condiru catfish, Paravandelia luna, which lives in the gills of other fish, and an isopod named Plurocryptella poseidon that takes up residence in the gill cavity of squat lobsters. The natural world is full of such curious stories, many involving small animals hidden from everyday view. As we reflect on these miniature marvels, remember that their lives are just as intricate and important as those of larger animals. The next chapter will bring us into the realm of microbes and fungi, where life's strangeness continues at an even smaller scale, with organisms that glow, infect, and transform their hosts in ways that seem magical. Let the gentle buzz of a nighttime meadow and the whisper of moth wings lull you toward the next dreamlike journey.
Chapter 9 invites us to shrink even further, down to the world of microbes and fungi, where creatures invisible to the naked eye shape the planet in profound ways. These microscopic beings are the oldest forms of life on Earth, with fossils of bacteria dating back over 3.5 billion years. They inhabit environments from boiling hot springs to frozen tundra, deep sea vents, and even the clouds. Without them, the atmosphere would lack oxygen, soils would not support plants, and many animals could not digest their food. Let us begin with bacteria, simple, single-celled organisms that come in shapes like rods, spheres, and spirals. Cyanobacteria, once known as blue-green algae, perform photosynthesis and were among the first organisms to produce oxygen. Their activity billions of years ago transformed Earth's atmosphere from an anoxic state to one rich in oxygen, allowing multicellular life to evolve. Some cyanobacteria form long filaments, while others live inside lichens or as symbionts in plant roots. Beneath the soil, other bacteria called rhizobia form nodules on legume roots, fixing nitrogen from the air into forms that plants can use. Another group, the extremophiles, thrive in conditions that would kill most organisms. Thermus aquaticus lives in hot springs and produces an enzyme used in the polymerase chain reaction, a technique fundamental to modern molecular biology. Halobacteria inhabit salt flats where the salinity is many times that of seawater. They use pigments called bacteriorhodopsins to capture light energy and pump ions. Acidophilic bacteria survive in acidic mine drainage, and barophiles inhabit deep-sea vents under immense pressure. Archaea, once thought to be bacteria, form a separate domain of life with unique cell membranes and enzymes. Methanogenic archaea live in the digestive tracts of ruminants like cows and produce methane as a waste product. Other archaea live in hot hydrothermal vents where they oxidize hydrogen sulfide, supporting entire ecosystems through chemosynthesis. In the oceans, microscopic plants called phytoplankton drift with currents. Diatoms are phytoplankton with intricate silica shells that resemble tiny glass sculptures. They come in shapes like stars, wheels, and spheres. And when they die, their shells accumulate on the ocean floor as diatomaceous earth. Dinoflagellates are another type of phytoplankton. Some species produce bioluminescence. When disturbed by waves or the movement of fish, these dinoflagellates emit blue light, causing the sea to sparkle at night. Bioluminescent bays in Puerto Rico and other places provide glowing displays thanks to dense populations of dinoflagellates. Other dinoflagellates form red tides that can release toxins, illustrating that microscopic organisms can impact entire ecosystems. Foraminifera are protists with calcium carbonate shells and multiple chambers. They extend thread-like pseudopods to capture food. Their shells accumulate on the seafloor and form limestone deposits over geological time. Planktonic foraminifera respond to changes in ocean temperature, making them valuable indicators of past climate. Radiolians produce intricate skeletons of silica with spines and geometric shapes. The beauty of these microorganisms inspired 19th century art and reveals nature's capacity for pattern even at small scales. Giant single-celled organisms called xenophyophores live on the deep-sea floor and can reach several centimeters in diameter. They build their shells or tests from sediment particles and may host diverse communities of bacteria and smaller organisms. Another remarkable microbe is the slime mold, which blurs the line between single cells and multicellular organisms. When food is plentiful, slime mold cells roam independently, feeding on bacteria. When starved, they emit chemical signals and aggregate into a crawling slug that moves as a single unit seeking new food sources.
Eventually, the slug transforms into a fruiting body, releasing spores that become new cells. Some slime molds, like Physarum polycephalum, solve complex problems, such as finding the shortest path through a maze, demonstrating a form of emergent intelligence. Viruses, though not considered living by some definitions, represent another layer of the microscopic world. They consist of genetic material encased in protein and can only replicate by infecting host cells. Giant viruses like Mimivirus and Pandoravirus challenge our understanding because they contain genes previously thought to exist only in cellular life. They can be as large as some bacteria and possess hundreds of genes, including those involved in DNA repair and protein synthesis. Some giant viruses have their own parasites, called virophages, which infect them and reduce their ability to replicate. This nested hierarchy of infection shows that complexity exists even at small scales. Viruses play roles in ecosystems, from controlling bacterial populations to transferring genes between hosts. In permafrost, scientists have discovered ancient viruses, dormant for tens of thousands of years, but still capable of infecting cells when thawed. This raises questions about what other ancient microbes may emerge as Earth's climate changes.
While bacteria and viruses capture the invisible, the kingdom of fungi brings us into a hidden network that connects soil, plants, and animals. Fungi are neither plants nor animals. They form their own kingdom, with cell walls made of chitin and bodies composed of thread-like filaments called hyphae. The main body of a fungus is usually underground or within its food source, forming a network called mycelium. When conditions are right, some fungi produce fruiting bodies that we recognize as mushrooms or toadstools. One of the largest organisms on Earth is a honey fungus, Armillaria ostoyae, whose mycelium covers nearly 10 square kilometers in Oregon. This fungal network may be thousands of years old, spreading gradually through roots and soil. Another giant fungus is found in Michigan, weighing an estimated 400 metric tons. Despite their size, these organisms remain hidden beneath the surface. Fungi form essential partnerships with plants through mycorrhizae. In this symbiosis, fungal hyphae wrap around or penetrate plant roots, increasing the root's ability to absorb water and nutrients. In return, the plant supplies the fungus with sugars produced by photosynthesis. Some mycorrhizal networks connect multiple plants, allowing them to exchange nutrients and chemical signals, a phenomenon sometimes called the wood wide web. This underground network can support seedlings, warn neighbors of pests, and distribute resources from healthy plants to stressed ones. Not all fungi are friendly. Some are formidable parasites. Entomopathogenic fungi like Ophiocordyceps infect insects and control their behavior, as mentioned with the zombie ant fungus. Another fungus, Massospora, infects cicadas and produces psychoactive compounds that cause infected males to behave like females, attracting mates and spreading spores. Fungi also cause diseases in humans and animals, such as athlete's foot, white nose syndrome in bats, and chytridiomycosis in amphibians. Yet even these fungi have ecological roles, balancing populations and recycling nutrients. Some fungi produce bioluminescent fruiting bodies. Species like Mycena chlorophyll and Omphalotus nidiformis emit a greenish glow visible on dark forest floors. Scientists think the light may attract insects that spread the fungus's spores, or it may deter animals from eating the mushrooms. The ghost fungus of Australia can glow bright enough to light a path in the woods. Other fungi create intricate structures like the lattice stinkhorn, which emerges from an egg-like sac and forms a lattice-like cage covered in foul-smelling slime to attract flies for spore dispersal. Even among single-celled fungi like yeasts, unusual processes occur. Brewer's yeast reproduces by budding, growing a small daughter cell that pinches off. Other yeasts can switch between sexual and asexual reproduction, depending on environmental conditions. One yeast, Candida auris, has become a concern in hospitals because of its resistance to multiple drugs and ability to spread quickly on surfaces. Fungi also participate in symbioses with algae to form lichens, which colonize bare rock and break it down into soil. Lichens exhibit diverse forms, from crusts to leaf-like and branching structures. They can survive extreme environments, such as Arctic tundra and desert rock faces, and some lichens glow under ultraviolet light. On fallen logs, you might see slime molds forming colorful blob-like structures. Some, like the dog vomit slime mold, spread as yellow or white plasmodia that later turn into powdery masses of spores. These slime molds feed on bacteria and organic matter, decomposing dead plants and recycling nutrients. The fungal world extends to aquatic environments as well. Chytrid fungi swim with flagella and play roles in decomposing aquatic plant material. Others infect algae and plankton, influencing food webs in lakes and oceans. The complexity of fungal interactions underscores that even organisms we seldom see can have outsized impacts on ecosystems. Microbes and fungi remind us that life operates at scales invisible but essential. They engineer Earth's cycles, build soil, ferment foods, and shape the health of plants, animals, and humans. They also demonstrate forms of behavior, cooperation, and parasitism that, though tiny, are awe-inspiring. As we prepare to explore extraordinary reproduction and survival strategies in the next chapter, take a moment to imagine glowing mushrooms in a dark forest, diatoms drifting in sunlight, and bacteria quietly transforming the world. The microscopic realm may be small, but its stories are vast. With Chapter 10, we turn to life's most intimate and inventive processes, reproduction and survival strategies. Across the animal kingdom, creatures have evolved extraordinary methods to ensure their genes persist, often in ways that defy our expectations. We begin with seahorses and their relatives, the pipefish and sea dragons. In these fish, it is the males who become pregnant. During courtship, females deposit eggs into a specialized pouch on the male's abdomen. The male fertilizes the eggs as they enter and then carries them until they hatch. Inside the pouch, the embryos receive oxygen and nutrients from the father, which he supplies through a placenta-like tissue. When the time comes, the male experiences contractions and expels fully formed miniature seahorses into the water. This role reversal may have evolved because females can produce another clutch of eggs sooner if the male carries the previous brood. Another unusual fish is the deep-sea anglerfish we mentioned earlier, where tiny males fuse their bodies to the much larger female. Upon meeting, the male bites the female and releases enzymes that dissolve their skin and blood vessels, joining their circulatory systems. Eventually, the male loses his eyes, fins, and organs, except for testes, becoming a permanent source of sperm for the female. This extreme form of parasitic mating ensures that the female always has a mate in the vast, dark ocean. On land, some frogs exhibit remarkable reproductive strategies. The Darwin's frog of South America lays eggs that the male later swallows. The tadpoles develop inside the male's vocal sac, and when they metamorphose into froglets, the father coughs them up and releases them. Sadly, one species of gastric brooding frog from Australia, which swallowed its eggs and turned its stomach into a womb, is now extinct. The Suriname toad of South America practices another unusual method. After fertilization, the male presses the eggs onto the female's back, where the skin thickens and forms pockets. The embryos develop inside these pockets, emerging as fully formed toadlets through openings in the mother's back. Among reptiles, some species of lizards reproduce without males, through parthenogenesis, producing genetically identical offspring. The whiptail lizards of the American Southwest are all female. They engage in courtship behavior to stimulate ovulation, but no fertilization occurs. In contrast, the Komodo dragon can reproduce both sexually and asexually. When females are isolated from males, they can lay viable eggs that produce male offspring, because of the way sex chromosomes work in Komodos. Among invertebrates, reproduction can take yet stranger forms. Snails and slugs are often hermaphrodites, possessing both male and female reproductive organs. When two snails mate, they exchange sperm, but before doing so, some species fire tiny calcareous spears called love darts into each other. The dart carries mucus that increases the survival of the shooter's sperm by altering the recipient's reproductive tract. This behavior demonstrates that even small creatures can employ complex strategies to ensure reproductive success. Bedbugs are infamous for traumatic insemination. Instead of depositing sperm into the female's genital tract, the male pierces her body wall with a needle-like organ and injects sperm directly into her body cavity. The sperm travel through her hemolymph to special storage organs. This method bypasses the female's choice, but carries risks of infection and injury. Females have evolved thickened areas to minimize damage. Some insects, like the emerald cockroach wasp, manipulate the behavior of their hosts to reproduce. The wasp stings a cockroach in specific parts of its brain, turning the cockroach into a compliant victim. The wasp then lays an egg on the cockroach and seals it in a burrow where the larva eats the cockroach alive. In the insect world, reproduction often involves many male suitors or many female partners. The jacana, a wading bird, flips typical roles. Females maintain territories and mate with several males, each of whom incubates her eggs and cares for the chicks. The dunnock, a small passerine bird, forms breeding groups ranging from monogamous pairs to polyandrous trios or polygynous harems. This flexibility in social structure shows that there is no single way to organize reproduction. Moving to mammals, marsupials like kangaroos have a unique reproductive strategy. After a short gestation, a tiny underdeveloped joey is born and crawls into the mother's pouch, where it attaches to a teat and continues to develop. Female kangaroos can have 3 young at different stages simultaneously: an older joey outside the pouch, a younger joey in the pouch, and an embryo paused in development within the womb. This ability, called embryonic diapause, allows kangaroos to time births when conditions are favorable. Among monotremes, the platypus lays eggs and incubates them by curling around them. Once hatched, the young lap milk from milk patches. In elephants, reproduction involves long gestation periods of 22 months, the longest of any land mammal. This extended development allows the calf to be born with a larger brain and the ability to stand soon after birth.
Whales and dolphins also have long gestation and complex social learning. Calves nurse for extended periods and learn songs or hunting techniques from their mothers and pods.
While reproduction ensures continuity, survival strategies allow animals to persist through harsh conditions. Many species have evolved ways to endure extreme temperatures, drought, or food scarcity. Hibernation is one such strategy employed by mammals like bats, bears, and ground squirrels. During hibernation, the animal's body temperature drops, metabolism slows, and heartbeat and breathing rate decrease drastically. This conserves energy when food is scarce. Some animals, like Arctic ground squirrels, can lower their body temperature below freezing and survive by producing proteins that prevent ice crystals from damaging cells. Aestivation is a similar state used during hot, dry periods. Desert frogs, like the African bullfrog, bury themselves underground in a cocoon of shed skin and mucus, slowing their metabolism until rain returns. Certain snails attach themselves to plant stems and seal their shells with a layer of dried mucus, waiting out droughts. Wood frogs in North America survive freezing winters by producing glucose and urea that act as natural antifreeze. Up to 65% of their body water can turn to ice, but their organs remain protected. When thawing, the heart restarts and circulation resumes. Other survival strategies involve migration, moving to environments where resources are abundant. Monarch butterflies travel thousands of kilometers from North America to Mexico to overwinter in Oyamel fir forests, then return north over multiple generations. Arctic terns migrate from pole to pole each year, flying tens of thousands of kilometers and enjoying 2 summers. Animals also use regeneration to survive injury. Axolotls, the salamanders that remain in their larval form, can regrow lost limbs, tails, and even parts of their heart and brain. Sea stars can regenerate arms, and if part of the central disc is included, a whole new starfish can grow from a single arm. Planishins, flatworms, commonly found in fresh water, can be cut into multiple pieces, each of which can grow into a new worm. These abilities rely on stem cells that can become different tissue. Some fish have adapted to survive in desiccated environments. African lungfish burrow into mud when rivers dry up, secreting a mucus cocoon and breathing air through a small tube. They can remain dormant for years until water returns. Hillifish lay eggs that can withstand drying. The embryos pause development and resume when rains flood their temporary pools. Brine shrimp, also known as sea monkeys, produce cysts containing embryos that can survive extreme salinity and dryness. Microbes and microanimals also employ survival tactics. Tardigrades, as we described, enter cryptobiosis to survive extremes. Some bacteria form spores when conditions are harsh. These spores can remain dormant for centuries and germinate when conditions improve. Plants have their own survival strategies. Seeds, like those of the desert lily, can lie dormant for years until rainfall triggers germination. Some seeds require fire to germinate, taking advantage of conditions after a wildfire when competition is reduced. In the animal kingdom, certain species cooperate to survive. Meerkats take turns standing guard while others forage. Musk oxen form protective circles around their young when wolves attack. Honeybees cluster tightly in winter and vibrate their wing muscles to generate heat, keeping the center of the cluster warm. During floods, fire ants link their bodies to form rafts with the queen and larvae at the center. Even reproduction itself can be a survival tactic. Some species invest heavily in a single reproductive event, then die. This strategy, called semelparity, is seen in Pacific salmon and many annual plants. Others reproduce multiple times over long lives, like albatrosses that live for decades and raise few chicks. In deep-sea lanternfish, males may become significantly smaller and attached to females, as in anglerfish, ensuring reproductive success in sparsely populated environments. Survival strategies also include chemical defenses. The bombardier beetle stores two chemicals in separate glands. When threatened, it mixes them to produce a hot, noxious spray from its abdomen. Skunks spray foul-smelling musk to deter predators. Poison dart frogs sequester alkaloids from their diet, rendering their skin toxic. Some newts produce tetrodotoxin, the same toxin found in pufferfish, deterring predators from eating them. Others rely on physical defenses, like armadillos that roll into balls or porcupines with quills. Collectively, these reproductive and survival strategies reveal the breadth of solutions life has developed to ensure continuity in challenging environments. In the next chapter, we will celebrate the living experiments of evolution today, including animals discovered recently and species that persist with ancient traits. Let the thought of a kangaroo's pouch and the whisper of migrating butterflies accompany you as we transition to our final thematic chapter. Our final chapter, Chapter 11, celebrates living evolutionary experiments and recently discovered wonders that remind us that the story of life is ongoing. While many of the creatures we have discussed are long gone, some lineages have persisted with minimal change, earning them the nickname living fossils. Others represent new branches on the tree of life, discovered only recently. One of the most famous living fossils is the coelacanth. Coelacanths were thought extinct for 66 million years, until a live specimen was caught off the coast of South Africa in 1938. This fish has lobed fins with bones similar to those of land vertebrates, reflecting its close relationship to the ancestors of tetrapods. Coelacanths live in deep volcanic caves and move slowly, using their paired fins like limbs. Another ancient lineage is represented by lungfish, which possess both gills and lungs. Some species can estivate in mud during droughts, breathing air until water returns. Lungfish date back over 400 million years and still resemble their fossil ancestors. On land, the Tutartara of New Zealand is the last surviving member of a reptile group that flourished during the age of dinosaurs. The Tutartara looks superficially like a lizard, but has unique features, including a third eye on top of its head, fused teeth, and a slow metabolism. It can live more than 100 years. The horseshoe crab we mentioned earlier is another living fossil, retaining its basic shape for hundreds of millions of years, while still playing vital roles in coastal ecosystems. In the ocean, the nautilus, a relative of squid and octopuses, swims using jet propulsion and inhabits a chambered shell that has changed little in hundreds of millions of years. The nautilus uses its many tentacles to grasp prey and regulates buoyancy by adjusting gas in its shell chambers. Among plants, the ginkgo tree represents a lineage that dates back 200 million years. Ginkgo leaves are fan-shaped and turn bright yellow in autumn. The tree has remained essentially unchanged since the time of the dinosaurs, and is often planted in cities because of its resilience to pollution. Another botanical survivor is the Welwitschia plant of Namibia, which consists of only 2 leaves that grow continuously throughout its life, sometimes for over 1,000 years. These ancient lineages show that when a body plan works, it can endure. Yet evolution also continues to produce novelties. Every year, scientists describe thousands of new species. In 2024 and 2025, researchers unveiled a host of surprises. We have already mentioned Wibala's horseshoe bat from Kenya, with its distinctive nose leaf that gives its echolocation calls unique shapes. Another new reptile, Anglerfish dicaprio, was discovered in the Indian Himalayas and named after actor Leonardo DiCaprio in recognition of his environmental advocacy. These slender, burrowing amphibians have reduced limbs and move like worms through soil. In the Grand Canyon, paleontologists found Cradraco spectatus, a Cambrian preapulate worm with branching teeth, illuminating an early branch of the animal tree. Among mammals, a new species of caecilian, Caecilia tesoro, was described from Ecuador, showing that even large vertebrates can still be discovered. In the oceans, scientists identified new species of glass sponge and deep-sea squid that add to our knowledge of abyssal biodiversity. On land, botanists continue to find new orchids with elaborate shapes and pollination strategies that involve specific insects. These discoveries emphasize that our inventory of life is incomplete. They also highlight the importance of conserving habitats where unknown species may dwell. Living evolutionary experiments include animals with mixed traits that blur categories. We have already talked about the platypus and echidna, egg-laying mammals with combinations of reptilian and mammalian features. Another example is the opossum, a marsupial that acts as a living filter for tick-borne diseases, because it eats thousands of ticks every week. Opossums also have relatively low body temperatures, making them resistant to rabies. The pangolin's scales are unique among mammals, and its ant-eating lifestyle parallels that of anteaters and aardvarks, despite unrelated ancestry, a case of convergent evolution. Similarly, the eye and woodpeckers fill similar ecological niches despite being a primate and a bird. In evolutionary terms, these living animals represent experiments that succeeded, each finding a way to make a living using unusual tools. Conservation efforts focus on protecting such unique organisms. The sola, sometimes called the Asian unicorn, is a rare bovine discovered in 1992 in the forests of Vietnam and Laos. With long, slender horns and white facial markings, it is one of the most endangered mammals, and almost nothing is known about its behavior. Another mysterious species is the New Guinea singing dog, rediscovered in the wild in 2016 after being thought extinct. This canine has a distinctive high-pitched howl and may hold clues about the origins of domestic dogs. The vaquita, a small porpoise in the Gulf of California, is the world's most endangered marine mammal, with fewer than 20 individuals remaining because of illegal fishing. Each of these species reminds us that evolution's experiments continue, and that human actions can determine whether they persist. By learning about these creatures, we cultivate empathy and a desire to protect our shared heritage. As we prepare for the epilogue, reflect on how living fossils and newly discovered species link the distant past to the present and future. The tapestry of life is both ancient and ever-emerging, inviting us to appreciate what has been and to safeguard what will be.
As our sleepy science journey comes to a close, it is time to gently lay down the threads we have woven through deep time and diverse habitats. We began in the Cambrian seas, where tiny, spiny creatures first tested new forms. We swam with armored fish and spiral-jawed sharks in ancient oceans, wandered among sail-backed reptiles and giant plesiosaurs, and marveled at dinosaurs with claws, sails, domes, and crests. We met mammals that grew to behemoth thoises or evolved trunks and armor, birds that lost flight and birds that could soar across continents, and deep-sea dwellers that glow in perpetual darkness. We crouched down to observe insects and microscopic animals with life histories as intricate as any giants, and we peered through microscopes to see bacteria, fungi, and viruses quietly shaping our world. We learned that reproduction and survival are stories of creativity and adaptation, from seahorses that carry babies to frogs that incubate tadpoles in their throats, from kangaroos with timed embryos to bacteria that hibernate for millennia. Finally, we celebrated living fossils and new discoveries, reminding us that evolution is both history and ongoing innovation. Throughout this journey, the tone has been calm and kind, like the voice of a trusted guide speaking softly as you drift towards sleep. Each creature introduced another possibility of what life can be, encouraging curiosity and respect for the natural world. Remember that every animal, whether ancient or living, spectacular or small, plays a role in Earth's tapestry. The five-eyed opabenia, the manta ray gliding above coral reefs, the pangolin curling into a scaly ball, and the unseen bacteria breaking down fallen leaves are all connected through shared ancestry and ecological webs. The story of life is not just about the weird and wonderful. It is about resilience, adaptation, and the beauty of diversity. As you close your eyes, imagine yourself flying alongside a giant albatross over open waves, diving with a narwhal beneath ice floes, or shrinking to watch tardigrades dance in a drop of dew. Let your mind wander through prehistoric forests and modern meadows, across deserts and under polar lights. You might dream of discovering a new species, of studying fossils in sandstone, or simply of listening to frogs calling under a full moon. Knowledge is a comfort and a companion. Knowing the stories of Earth's creatures can make you feel at home in a vast universe. If this narrative has sparked questions, let them glow softly like dinoflagellates in a nighttime wave. Questions are seeds of exploration. Perhaps you will grow up to explore deep-sea trenches, to conserve rainforests, to study DNA, or to teach others about the wonders of nature. The planet needs explorers and dreamers, scientists and storytellers, guardians and friends. For now, as you snuggle under blankets and listen to the quiet, let these images settle like snowflakes on a still winter night. The world outside may be noisy, but inside, a universe of creatures awaits in your imagination. Good night, dear listener, and may your dreams be filled with the awe and peace that come from knowing our world is stranger and more beautiful than any fantasy.